I found out my fiancé was cheating through our shared fitness app. I, 29, got engaged to my boyfriend Jake, 31, 6 months ago. We'd been together for 4 years, and everything seemed perfect. We're both into fitness and use the same workout tracking app that shows your location when you check into gyms. It's a feature we both loved because we could encourage each other even when working out separately. 3 weeks ago, I noticed something odd. Jake said he was going to his usual gym after work, but the app showed he checked in at a gym across town, one neither of us had ever been to. When he got home, I asked how his workout was, and he described his usual gym in detail, talking about people he saw there and machines he used. He was lying directly to my face. I started watching the app more carefully. Over the next week, he checked into that unfamiliar gym 4 times while telling me he was at his regular place. Once, he said he was working late, but the app showed a gym check-in at 7 p.m. I drove past his office that night. His car wasn't there. I drove to the gym the app showed. His car was in the parking lot. I sat in my car trying to process what was happening. Maybe he just liked trying a different gym and didn't think to mention it? But why lie about it? I waited. 40 minutes later, Jake walked out with a woman. They weren't just walking together. He had his arm around her waist. They stopped at her car and kissed before he got into his own car and drove off. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I followed the woman's car and wrote down her license plate. When I got home, Jake was already there, showered and relaxed on the couch. He asked how my day was, like nothing had happened. I said it was fine and went to bed early, claiming a headache. The next day, I hired a private investigator. Within a week, I had everything. The woman's name was Melissa, 28, and she worked at a marketing firm. Jake had been seeing her for 8 months, almost as long as we'd been engaged. They met at that gym and started the affair shortly after. The investigator had photos of them together at restaurants, her apartment, even a weekend trip to a nearby city that Jake told me was a work conference. I found receipts in Jake's car for jewelry I never received, hotel charges on a credit card he thought I didn't know about, text messages the investigator pulled from phone records with explicit content, and plans to be together. They had talked about me. Melissa knew Jake was engaged. She made jokes about me being clueless. Jake told her he was planning to call off the wedding, but wanted to wait until after his sister's wedding so he didn't cause family drama. His sister's wedding was in 2 weeks. So Jake was planning to keep lying to me, keep sleeping with both of us, and then dump me after using me as his date to a family event. I felt disgusted and betrayed. 4 years together, and I was just a convenience he'd discard when timing suited him. I contacted Melissa through social media. I didn't accuse or threaten. I simply said I knew about her relationship with Jake and asked if we could meet for coffee. She agreed, probably out of curiosity. When we met, I showed her everything. The engagement ring on my finger, photos of Jake and me throughout our relationship, our apartment lease with both names, evidence that I was not some ex he had told her about, but his current fiancé he lived with. Melissa went pale. She claimed Jake told her we had broken up months ago and he was just stuck in the lease. I showed her time-stamped photos from last week of us together. She started crying and admitted she suspected something was off but wanted to believe him. I asked if she'd help me expose him. She agreed immediately. Jake's sister Emma was having a large wedding with over 200 guests. I was supposed to be Jake's +1. The wedding was at a beautiful venue, with a reception hall that had multiple screens for displaying photos. Emma had asked family members to submit photos for a slideshow during dinner. I told Emma I wanted to put together a special tribute to Jake as her brother, highlighting his journey to this point in his life. She loved the idea and gave me access to add content to the presentation system. I created a special slideshow, but not the kind Emma expected. The wedding ceremony was beautiful. Jake held my hand during the vows, whispering how that would be us soon. I smiled and squeezed his hand back. At the reception, we sat at the family table. Melissa was also there, invited as the +1 of Jake's cousin who I had quietly coordinated with. Dinner was served, and the slideshows began. Family photos played on the screens showing Emma growing up. Then my special presentation started. It opened with a tribute to Jake's honesty and loyalty. The next slide showed Jake and me on our engagement day. Then photos of Jake and Melissa together from The Investigator, dated and time-stamped, all from after our engagement. The screens showed text message screenshots where Jake discussed hiding the affair. Hotel receipts. The gym check-ins showing his lies. Photos of them kissing. His messages about dumping me after this wedding. Everything laid out chronologically across 3 large screens in front of 200 people. The room went completely silent except for gasps. Jake jumped up and tried to reach the AV booth, but hotel staff stopped him. Emma looked horrified. Their parents' faces went from confused to furious as they processed what they were seeing. Melissa stood up and confirmed everything was real, saying she wouldn't have participated if she'd known he was still engaged. I took off my ring, placed it on the table in front of Jake, and walked out. His mother followed me outside, apologizing profusely. Emma came out crying, saying she had no idea and her brother was dead to her for ruining her wedding. I told her I was sorry for the timing, but I couldn't sit through a celebration of love while the man who destroyed mine sat next to me pretending everything was fine. Jake has tried calling and texting hundreds of times. His family has disowned him. Emma won't speak to him. Melissa blocked him on everything. Some people think I should have exposed him privately instead of at his sister's wedding. But he planned to use that wedding as his last hurrah with me before discarding me like trash. I moved out of our apartment the next day while he was trying to deal with his family. I'm staying with friends and starting over. Sometimes I wonder if the public humiliation was too far, but then I remember 8 months of lies and the messages where he laughed about me with her. I noticed my husband's coffee rewards app showed drinks for 2 people every morning. I, 33, share pretty much everything with my husband Ryan, 35, including our finances and various app subscriptions. We've been married for 6 years and have always been open about our accounts. Last week I was trying to use our shared coffee shop rewards app to get my usual morning latte when I noticed something strange in the order history. Ryan had been ordering 2 specialty drinks almost every weekday morning for the past 3 months. One was his usual black coffee, but the second was always a complicated customized drink, an oat milk vanilla latte with extra foam and caramel drizzle. I'd never seen Ryan drink anything like that. I thought maybe he was being nice and bringing coffee to coworkers, but the pattern was too consistent and the location was wrong. The orders were placed at a coffee shop nowhere near Ryan's office or our home. It was in a neighborhood about 30 minutes away that we had no reason to visit. The timestamps showed he was ordering around 7:45 a.m., which meant he was leaving our house at 7 a.m., claiming to go straight to work, but actually driving in the opposite direction first. Every single weekday for 3 months. I checked our car's mileage and did some math. The extra miles matched up with detours to that coffee shop neighborhood. I looked at our bank statements more carefully. There were other charges from businesses near that same coffee shop, restaurants and a grocery store, all during times Ryan said he was working or running errands near his office. He'd been regularly visiting this specific area and lying about where he was going. I created a new account on the coffee app and checked in at that location one morning to see what was nearby. The coffee shop was in a residential area with nice apartment buildings. I drove there during the time Ryan usually placed his orders and parked where I could see the entrance. 20 minutes later, Ryan's car pulled up. He went inside and came out with 2 drinks. Then he walked across the street to one of the apartment buildings and let himself in with a key. I waited in my car for 2 hours. Ryan didn't come back out. I was supposed to be at work but called in sick, too shocked to function. Finally, around 10 a.m., Ryan emerged from the building and drove away, presumably heading to his actual office. I waited another 15 minutes, then went to the building's entrance. The directory showed 12 units, but no names, just numbers. I went back to the coffee app and looked at every single order Ryan had placed over 3 months. The consistent second drink order meant someone had specific preferences he'd memorized. I started checking Ryan's phone records online through our shared account. Every morning after the coffee shop, there was a 20-minute gap with no calls or texts. Then his normal workday resumed. He was spending time with someone during those morning visits. I hired a private investigator who confirmed my suspicions within days. Ryan had been visiting a woman named Gabrielle, who lived in Unit 7B of that building. She was 28, worked remotely as a graphic designer, and had been seeing Ryan for 4 months. The PI got photos of them together through her apartment window, clearly intimate and comfortable with each other. They had a morning routine, coffee together before Ryan went to work, like a couple starting their day. The PI discovered they'd met at an industry networking event Ryan attended for work. Gabrielle worked for a vendor his company used. They'd exchanged information professionally at first, then started meeting for coffee to discuss projects. Those coffee meetings turned into visits to her apartment. The affair had become a routine part of Ryan's morning schedule that he'd built seamlessly into his day. I looked at the coffee orders with new understanding. Ryan had memorized Gabrielle's exact drink preferences and ordered for her every single morning. That oat milk vanilla latte with extra foam and caramel drizzle was her drink, something Ryan knew by heart after months of this routine. He'd integrated her so completely into his daily life that it was documented in our shared rewards app. I found text messages between them on an app I didn't know Ryan had installed. They called each other pet names and discussed their mornings together. Gabrielle knew Ryan was married. The messages made that clear, but she seemed comfortable with the arrangement. They talked about their favorite mornings together, inside jokes about coffee orders, complaints about Ryan having to leave for work when they wanted more time together. Ryan's company was hosting their annual Client Appreciation Dinner next month. It was their biggest event of the year, with over 400 people, including employees, clients, vendors, and partners. Spouses were expected to attend. Ryan had been talking about it for weeks, mentioning important clients he needed to impress. I confirmed through the guest list that Gabrielle's company was invited as a key vendor. I contacted Gabrielle through her business email, introducing myself professionally and saying I wanted to discuss her work with Ryan's company. She agreed to meet for coffee, probably thinking it was a business opportunity. When we met, I showed her my wedding ring and explained I was Ryan's wife of 6 years. Her face went pale. She started to say she didn't know what I was talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed her the coffee app order history. 4 months of Ryan ordering her exact drink every morning. Photos the PI took of Ryan entering her building. Proof of my marriage to Ryan with recent photos showing we were very much together. Gabrielle started crying and admitted everything. She claimed Ryan told her his marriage was essentially over, and they were staying together for financial reasons while figuring out separation. I showed her photos from last week of Ryan and me at dinner celebrating our anniversary. Photos from our recent weekend trip together. Evidence that Ryan's marriage was not ending at all. Gabrielle was horrified, realizing she'd been completely deceived. I asked if she'd help me expose Ryan at the Client Appreciation Dinner. She said yes immediately, angry at being lied to. The night of the dinner, I arrived with Ryan as his wife. Gabrielle attended as a representative of her company. Ryan was networking and confident, introducing me to clients and colleagues. He saw Gabrielle across the room, and I watched a brief flash of panic before he composed himself. He avoided her area of the room all evening. During the dinner program, the company president invited key vendors on stage to be recognized. Gabrielle's company was called up. She accepted the recognition, then asked for the microphone. She thanked Ryan's company for their business and said she wanted to share something personal about her working relationship with Ryan Harrison specifically. She described how they'd met at a networking event and began collaborating on projects. Then she explained that their professional relationship had become personal, that they'd been seeing each other every morning for 4 months, and that Ryan had claimed to be separated from his wife. Then she invited me on stage. I came up and introduced myself as Ryan's wife, very much not separated. I showed the coffee app order history on the screen behind us. 4 months of Ryan ordering drinks for 2 every morning while claiming to go straight to work. I explained the timeline, showing Ryan with me as his devoted wife, while spending mornings with Gabrielle as his girlfriend. The ballroom went silent. Ryan's boss looked furious. Clients were whispering. Ryan tried to leave, but several colleagues blocked his path, wanting answers. I showed photos of Ryan entering Gabrielle's building, text messages between them, evidence of the affair presented clearly to everyone who'd been trusting him professionally. Ryan's boss called him into a meeting the next day. While they couldn't fire him for his personal life, his credibility with clients was destroyed. Gabrielle's company ended their vendor relationship with Ryan's firm, not wanting the drama. Several clients requested to work with different account managers. Ryan's career advancement opportunities evaporated. Gabrielle and I both ended our relationships with Ryan immediately. He tried to apologize to both of us separately, claiming he was confused and made mistakes. But he'd spent 4 months building a morning routine with another woman while lying to everyone. Some people think I embarrassed him unnecessarily at a professional event, but Ryan had been using professional relationships to facilitate his affair. The divorce is moving forward. I'm rebuilding my life without someone who could look me in the eye every morning while leaving to spend time with another woman. Sometimes I think about how that shared coffee app revealed everything, how Ryan's routine became his downfall. Other times I wonder how long it would have continued if I hadn't noticed those duplicate drink orders. Our car's navigation history showed an address my husband visits when I'm away. I, 36, share a car with my husband Tom, 38, since we work different schedules and only need one vehicle. I use it during the day for my job in pharmaceutical sales, and he takes it for evening shifts as a project manager working late hours. Last month I needed to revisit a client's office and went to check the car's navigation history for the address I'd saved. That's when I noticed something strange. There was an address programmed into the navigation system that appeared dozens of times over the past few months, always during Tom's evening shifts. The address was in a neighborhood about 20 minutes from our house, somewhere neither of us had friends or family. I Googled it. A residential apartment complex. No businesses nearby that would explain work meetings. Just someone's home that Tom was visiting regularly. I started checking the timestamps of when this address was navigated to, always on evenings when I worked late or had overnight work trips. Sometimes the car showed he'd been parked there for 3 or 4 hours. Once, the GPS history showed he'd gone there directly from our house after I left for a 3-day conference, stayed for 7 hours, then came home right before I returned. I didn't confront Tom immediately. I needed more information. I drove to the address one afternoon when Tom was actually at work. It was a nice apartment building with a secured entrance. I couldn't get inside to see which specific unit, but I wrote down the building number and started researching. Property records showed the building had 42 units. Without a unit number, I couldn't identify who lived there. So I waited and watched. 2 days later, Tom said he had to work late on a project deadline. I told him I was going to dinner with coworkers and would be out until 10. Instead, I followed him. He drove straight to that apartment complex, parked, and went inside using a key fob to access the building. I waited outside for an hour before positioning myself near the entrance. Through the glass doors, I saw Tom come down with a woman. She was younger, maybe early 30s, attractive, and clearly comfortable with him. They kissed goodbye in the lobby before he left. She was wearing his jacket. I took photos of everything. Once Tom drove away, I waited for her to leave the building. When she did, 30 minutes later, I followed her to a nearby coffee shop and watched her meet friends. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I took more photos. The woman was animated and happy, laughing with her friends. Later, I followed her back to the apartment building and watched which unit's lights turned on. Third floor, corner unit. I cross-referenced with the building directory near the mailboxes that I could see through the glass entrance. Unit 3C belonged to someone named A. Martinez. Back home, I started investigating. I went through Tom's phone while he was sleeping, using his passcode he'd never changed. I found messages to someone named Andrea. Hundreds of them, going back 8 months. The messages were explicitly romantic and sexual. They called each other baby and discussed their future together. Tom had told Andrea he was separated from me and finalizing divorce paperwork. Complete lies. I found photos Tom had sent her from our home that he'd cropped to hide recognizable features. Pictures of himself in our bathroom mirror, in our bedroom, even in our kitchen, but angled to avoid showing details. Andrea had sent photos back, some innocent, many not. They'd been documenting their relationship digitally while being careful not to create obvious evidence. The worst part was reading about their plans. Tom told Andrea he'd be officially divorced by spring, and they could finally stop hiding. He promised her trips and a future together. He even discussed moving into her apartment once he settled things with his ex-wife. All while coming home to me every night, sleeping in our bed, planning our summer vacation. I hired a private investigator anyway to confirm everything and gather more evidence. The PI followed Tom for a week and documented 10 visits to Andrea's apartment during times he told me he was working late. The PI got photos of them together in public, at restaurants and stores across town where we never went. They weren't being particularly careful anymore, acting like a couple openly in areas they assumed I'd never visit. Tom's company was celebrating their 25th anniversary with a huge gala next month. 400 employees, clients, and partners would attend. Tom had been planning to go for months, excited because several major clients he'd been courting would be there. It was a career networking opportunity he'd been talking about constantly. Partners were expected to attend, and I'd already RSVP'd as his wife. I contacted Tom's boss directly and requested a meeting. I explained that I needed to share important information about Tom's character and judgment. His boss was confused but agreed to meet me for coffee. I showed him everything. The evidence of Tom's affair, the lies he'd told Andrea about being divorced, the fact that he'd been using work hours and claiming late nights for personal relationship purposes. Tom's boss was shocked but appreciated knowing. He said this reflected poorly on Tom's integrity and judgment, especially since Tom managed client relationships based on trust. He agreed to let me address it at the anniversary gala, understanding that Tom's misrepresentation of his personal life while networking with clients was a company concern. The night of the gala, I arrived with Tom as his wife. Andrea was also there as a guest of another employee she knew from networking events. I'd confirmed her attendance through social media. Tom had no idea she'd be there, and I watched the color drain from his face when he spotted her across the room. He spent the evening trying to keep us separated, making excuses to keep me at our table while positioning himself to intercept Andrea. During the dinner program, Tom's boss announced they had a special recognition segment. He called me up to the stage, introducing me as Tom's wife of 11 years. Tom looked confused and proud, assuming this was some kind of spousal appreciation. Andrea looked confused from across the room. I took the microphone and thanked everyone for coming. Then I showed a presentation on the large screens, the navigation history showing Tom's repeated trips to Andrea's address, screenshots of his messages to her lying about being separated, photos the PI took of them together, the timeline of 8 months of deception laid out clearly with evidence. I explained that Tom had been lying to both me and Andrea, maintaining 2 relationships simultaneously while using company time and resources to facilitate the affair. I showed messages where Tom discussed missing work obligations to spend time with Andrea. I included his lies to clients about why he was unavailable during times he was actually at her apartment. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Tom tried to leave the stage, but his boss stopped him and asked for an explanation. Andrea left immediately in tears. Clients looked disgusted. Tom's colleagues were whispering. His boss publicly announced that Tom's employment would be reviewed based on this information, particularly the misuse of company time and integrity concerns. Tom was fired 3 days later. Andrea blocked him on everything after realizing he'd been lying to her about being separated. I filed for divorce immediately. Tom tried to salvage things, claiming it was a midlife crisis and begging for another chance. But I was done. Some people think I destroyed his career unnecessarily, that I should have just divorced him quietly. But Tom built relationships with clients based on trust and integrity, while lying to everyone in his personal life. He used company resources and time for his affair. His boss agreed the company needed to know. The divorce is almost finalized. Tom's career in the industry has suffered significantly because word spread about why he was fired. Andrea apparently moved to a different city to start over. I'm rebuilding my life without someone who spent 8 months lying to me while planning a future with someone else. I don't regret exposing him publicly. He made his choices, and sometimes those choices have very public consequences. I received flowers meant for another woman with my boyfriend's card attached. I, 30, have been with my boyfriend Daniel, 32, for 4 years. We've lived together for 2 years in a house we rent. Last Tuesday, I worked from home and a flower delivery arrived at our door. Beautiful roses with a card that said, "Can't wait to see you this weekend. Thinking of you always. D." I assumed they were for me and was touched by the romantic gesture, even though it wasn't a special occasion. I texted Daniel a photo thanking him. He responded with confusion, saying he didn't send me flowers. I thought he was playing coy, or had forgotten he'd ordered them, but he insisted he hadn't sent anything. I looked at the delivery receipt more carefully. The flowers were addressed to our house, but the recipient name said Laura Mitchell, not my name. I'd signed for them without checking because deliveries come to our house all the time. I called the florist to report the error. They checked their records and confirmed the flowers were ordered by Daniel Harrison, my boyfriend's full name, including middle name that he rarely uses. They were supposed to be delivered to a different address across town, but the delivery driver had mixed up the orders. They apologized profusely and said they'd send a replacement to the correct address immediately. I asked who the correct recipient was. The florist said Laura Mitchell at an address I didn't recognize. I hung up feeling sick. Daniel had sent romantic flowers to another woman using his full, real name, not even trying to hide his identity. I Googled Laura Mitchell with the address. Her social media profiles came up. She was 28, attractive, and worked as a graphic designer downtown. I looked through Laura's public Instagram posts. There were no photos of her with Daniel, but there were photos of gifts I recognized. A scarf Daniel had given me for my birthday last year appeared in one of Laura's posts from around the same time. Different color, but identical pattern. A cookbook I'd gotten from Daniel for Christmas was in Laura's kitchen in a photo from that same week. Different edition, but the same author he'd specifically said he chose for me. I started searching our house for evidence with this new perspective. In Daniel's closet, I found a shoebox of receipts he'd saved for tax purposes. I went through every one from the past year. He'd been buying duplicate gifts constantly. 2 identical necklaces from the same jeweler on the same day. One he'd given me, the other presumably for Laura. 2 pairs of concert tickets to shows he'd taken me to, meaning he'd taken Laura to the same concerts on different dates. 2 reservations at the same restaurants on different weekends. I found more receipts for flowers sent to Laura's address going back 18 months. Weekly or bi-weekly deliveries, the same frequency Daniel occasionally sent me flowers. He'd been conducting parallel relationships, giving us the same experiences, the same gifts, taking us to the same places on different days. We were living identical girlfriend experiences with the same man. I checked our shared calendar that Daniel used to track his schedule. Times he marked as work dinners or business trips coincided with dates in Laura's Instagram posts where she was clearly with someone, photographed at the same restaurants, same cities. One photo showed her at a beach resort Daniel told me was a solo work retreat. Her caption mentioned a romantic getaway. I created a fake profile and messaged Laura directly, pretending to be someone who thought I recognized her boyfriend from somewhere. I sent a cropped photo of Daniel that only showed enough to identify him if you knew him well. Laura responded immediately saying, "Yes, that's her boyfriend Daniel. They've been together for almost 2 years, and he's wonderful." 2 years. He'd been seeing both of us for half of our 4-year relationship. I asked Laura a few more innocent-sounding questions. She believed Daniel worked in consulting, which explained his irregular hours. She said he traveled for work frequently, which is when he was actually with me. She mentioned he had a roommate, which explained why she'd never been to our house. Daniel had built an entire false identity to maintain both relationships. I told Laura I must be thinking of someone else and deleted the fake profile. Then I hired a private investigator to document everything properly before confronting anyone. The PI followed Daniel for 2 weeks and confirmed he was alternating time between me and Laura on a careful schedule. He'd spend 3 nights a week at our house with me, 3 nights at a hotel near Laura, where she thought he lived, and 1 night claimed as work travel. Daniel's company was hosting their annual summer barbecue next month at a park pavilion. It was a huge casual event with over 200 employees and their families. Everyone brought their significant others and kids. I'd attended the past 3 years with Daniel. I RSVP'd for both of us like normal. What Daniel didn't know was that Laura's company was co-hosting the event this year. The PI discovered that Daniel and Laura's companies had merged 6 months ago and were combining their summer events. Laura had RSVP'd to bring Daniel as her +1. He'd confirmed attendance with both of us separately, probably planning to make an excuse to miss one at the last minute like he usually did. I contacted Laura through a new direct message, this time from my real account with my real name. I introduced myself as Daniel's girlfriend of 4 years and sent her undeniable proof. Photos of us throughout our relationship, our rental lease with both names, pictures from inside our shared home showing his belongings. I explained he'd been lying to both of us and suggested we both attend the barbecue to confront him together. Laura was devastated but angry. She shared her own evidence with me. Nearly identical gifts, identical date experiences, the same lies told to both of us. We compared notes about his schedule and realized how carefully he'd orchestrated everything. We agreed to the joint confrontation. The day of the barbecue, I arrived with Daniel as expected. Laura came separately. Daniel was relaxed and social, introducing me to colleagues from his company and completely unaware Laura would be there. When he saw Laura across the pavilion, I watched panic flash across his face before he composed himself. He made an excuse about needing to make a work call and tried to leave. Laura and I blocked his exit together. In front of over 200 people, we stood on either side of him and simultaneously introduced ourselves as his girlfriend. The crowd around us went silent. People pulled out phones. Daniel tried to deny it, but Laura and I had coordinated our presentation. We took turns showing photos of our relationships with Daniel, receipts for duplicate gifts, evidence of him maintaining 2 complete lives. His coworkers were shocked. His boss looked furious. Several people left in disgust. Daniel tried to claim we were both exes harassing him, but too many people recognized me from previous company events as his long-term girlfriend. His boss pulled him aside, and they had a heated conversation. Daniel was escorted out of the event. Laura and I stayed and talked with his shocked coworkers, some of whom apologized for not noticing anything was wrong. Several mentioned Daniel had been erratic about his schedule, but they'd attributed it to work stress. Daniel was fired the following week for misrepresenting his availability and lying about his schedule, which had affected project timelines. Both Laura and I ended the relationships immediately. He tried apologizing to both of us separately, claiming he loved us both and couldn't choose. But he'd been lying daily to both of us for 2 years. Some people think we embarrassed him unnecessarily at a work event. but Daniel had been using his work schedule as cover for maintaining two relationships, lying to colleagues about his availability and representing himself falsely to both companies. His boss agreed the integrity issue needed to be addressed. Laura and I have become friends through this bizarre experience. We occasionally laugh about the identical gifts and dates, though it's still painful processing the deception. I'm in therapy working through trust issues. Daniel moved to a different city after losing both relationships and his job. I don't regret exposing him publicly. He orchestrated an elaborate deception for 2 years, treating both of us like we were interchangeable. He deserved to face the consequences in front of everyone he'd been lying to. I received a message from a stranger saying they matched with my wife on a dating app. I, 31, got a strange Instagram DM 2 weeks ago from someone I didn't know named Bradley. He apologized for reaching out but said he needed to tell me something important. He'd matched with my wife, Sophia, 29, on a dating app 3 days earlier. They'd been chatting and planned to meet for drinks when he decided to do a reverse image search on her profile photos out of curiosity. One photo led him to my Instagram, where Sophia appeared in multiple recent posts, clearly my wife, with our wedding photos visible on my profile. Bradley felt terrible and wanted me to know before meeting up with her. He sent screenshots of Sophia's dating profile. She was using her real first name and recent photos I'd taken of her, but claimed to be single, worked in a different industry than her actual job, and was looking for something casual and fun, no strings attached. Her profile said she was 27, child-free, and loved spontaneous adventures. We don't have kids, but we'd been trying. Sophia is 29, not 27. The profile was definitely her, but with false information, designed to present herself as available and uncommitted. Bradley showed me their chat history. Sophia had been flirtatious and eager to meet, suggesting drinks at a bar downtown that Thursday, just 2 days away. She'd sent additional photos, some I recognized from our home. I asked Bradley not to tell Sophia anything and to keep their date. I needed to see this for myself. He agreed, disturbed by the situation. I created a fake profile on the same dating app, using photos that didn't show my face clearly. Within an hour, I found Sophia's profile. It had been active for 6 months based on the account age, verified with multiple photos, detailed bio, and showed she was active recently. I started swiping and researching. The app had a feature showing mutual friends and connections. Several people in Sophia's network were visible. I screenshotted everything and started investigating who she might have already met through the app. I hired a private investigator who specialized in digital forensics and infidelity cases. Within 3 days, he'd uncovered extensive evidence. Sophia had been using the dating app actively for 7 months, not just 6 based on account age. She'd matched with over 200 people, had ongoing conversations with dozens, and had met at least 15 different men for dates, according to her message history the PI managed to access through methods I didn't ask about. The PI found that Sophia had been seeing multiple people simultaneously, telling each one she was single and unattached. Some were one-time meetups. Others were ongoing casual relationships spanning months. She'd been careful about locations, choosing places across town from our neighborhood, meeting people on evenings when I worked late or traveled for work. Her dating profile mentioned loving her freedom and independence, complete opposite of our married life. I went through our credit card statements and calendar with this new context. Charges I'd assumed were from dinners with her girlfriends were actually dates with men from the app. Nights she claimed to have book club or yoga class corresponded with messages on the app arranging meetups. A weekend she'd gone to visit her college friend matched with the PI's evidence of her spending it with someone she'd been seeing for 3 months. The PI discovered Sophia had been unusually active on the app in recent weeks, matching with new people aggressively, scheduling multiple dates each week. Bradley was one of several men she'd planned to meet that same week. She'd apparently decided to increase her activity, possibly because our relationship had been stable and boring to her. Or maybe she was planning to end things and wanted options lined up. I contacted Bradley and asked if he'd still be willing to help expose Sophia. He agreed immediately, angry that she'd tried to use him while lying about being married. I also reached out to 3 other men the PI identified as people Sophia had been seeing regularly over the past few months. I showed them proof she was married. 2 were horrified and agreed to help. 1 blocked me and wanted nothing to do with the situation. Together, we created a plan. Sophia's company was hosting a major networking event next month that she'd been planning for months. She worked in event management, and this was her biggest project of the year, a professional gala with over 400 attendees, including clients, vendors, industry contacts, and her entire company. Partners and spouses were expected to attend. The night of the gala, I arrived as Sophia's husband, dressed formally and ready to support her big professional moment. She was radiant and confident, having worked on this event for 6 months. She introduced me to colleagues and clients, playing the devoted wife, while I knew she'd been on a date with someone from the app just 3 nights earlier when she told me she was working late on event preparations. Bradley arrived as a guest of one of the vendors Sophia's company worked with. The 2 other men who'd agreed to help came as +1s of attendees they knew. Sophia didn't notice them in the crowd of 400 people. She was too busy managing the event, ensuring everything ran perfectly. After dinner, during the networking portion of the evening, I took the microphone and asked for everyone's attention. I thanked Sophia's company for the wonderful event and said I wanted to share something about my wife's dedication and hard work. Sophia looked pleased, thinking I was giving a supportive spouse speech. Instead, I displayed her dating profile on the screens throughout the venue. Her photos, her bio claiming to be single and looking for casual fun, her age listed as 2 years younger than reality, everything visible to her professional network. The room went silent as people processed what they were seeing. I explained that while Sophia had been planning this event for months, she'd also been actively using a dating app to meet men, claiming to be single and unattached. I showed statistics from her profile: 7 months active, over 200 matches, extensive message history. Then I invited Bradley, Marcus, and James to join me. The 3 men came forward, and each briefly explained their experience with Sophia. Bradley described matching with her 3 days before her wedding anniversary and planning a date. Marcus explained they'd been seeing each other casually for 3 months, while Sophia told him she was single and working long hours at a demanding job. James described several dates over 2 months where Sophia presented herself as completely available with no attachments. Sophia's face went from confused to mortified. Her boss looked furious. Clients and vendors were whispering and staring. I showed screenshots of her messages to these men, her lies about being single, her active efforts to maintain multiple simultaneous relationships while coming home to me each night, pretending everything was normal. Sophia tried to claim the profile was fake, that someone was impersonating her. But the account verification features, the detailed message history, and 3 men confirming they'd actually met her in person made that impossible to believe. Her colleagues had seen her distracted by her phone during work, always texting, now understanding she'd been managing multiple relationships through the app. Her company didn't fire her, but her professional reputation was destroyed at the event she'd spent half a year planning. Several clients expressed concerns about her judgment and trustworthiness. Vendors felt uncomfortable working with her after the public revelation. Her boss reassigned her to different projects, and she was essentially sidelined professionally. Sophia and I are divorced now. The 3 men who helped expose her have moved on. Bradley messages occasionally to check how I'm doing, still feeling guilty for being the unwitting catalyst. Some people think I destroyed Sophia's career unnecessarily by exposing her at her biggest professional event. But Sophia had been using the stability of our marriage as her home base while actively seeking out multiple other relationships, lying to everyone about her availability and situation. She'd been deceptive not just to me, but to dozens of people, wasting their time with someone who was never actually available. Her professional event seemed like the appropriate place to reveal that the person who'd spent months planning it had also spent months planning secret dates through a dating app. The divorce was quick, since Sophia couldn't deny the affair evidence. I'm rebuilding my life, grateful to Bradley for having the integrity to reach out. Sometimes I think about how Sophia had over 200 matches and countless conversations with people who thought she was available. How she'd been living multiple lives simultaneously, while I remained completely unaware, until a stranger decided honesty mattered more than keeping her secret. I realized my boyfriend was cheating when Netflix recommended a show I'd never watched. I, 31, have been with my boyfriend Chris, 33, for 5 years. We live together and share pretty much everything, including streaming accounts. 2 months ago, I was looking for something to watch on Netflix when I noticed the Continue Watching section had shows I'd never started. A romantic drama that definitely wasn't my style, some reality dating show, and a cooking competition I had zero interest in. I figured Chris had been watching them and thought nothing of it, but then I noticed the viewing history. These shows were being watched during the day while I was at work, and Chris claimed to be at his office. Episodes were being watched in sequence, like someone was binge-watching with another person. I checked other streaming services we shared. Hulu showed similar patterns. Disney Plus had kids' movies playing during times when neither of us would watch them. Chris doesn't have kids. None of his friends have young children who would be at our apartment. I started paying attention to other things. Our Spotify showed playlists I didn't create with romantic songs and inside jokes in the titles. YouTube history had videos about date ideas and relationship advice I never searched for. Someone else was using our accounts regularly, and they were comfortable enough to not hide it. I checked our smart home devices. Our Alexa history showed requests for music and commands I didn't make, all during work hours when I was gone. Someone was asking Alexa to play specific songs, set timers for cooking, even asking about weather and traffic for locations Chris never mentioned going to. The voice patterns were female, but I couldn't identify who. Then I found something more concrete. Our Ring doorbell camera. I scrolled back through weeks of footage. A woman had been coming to our apartment 2 or 3 times a week for the past 4 months, always during my work hours. She had a key. She would let herself in like she lived there, sometimes carrying groceries or overnight bags. She'd leave before I got home, usually around 4 p.m. I saved all the doorbell footage and started cross-referencing everything. The days she came over matched the streaming activity perfectly. They were watching shows together, cooking together based on the Alexa commands, living like a couple in my apartment while I was at work. I felt sick realizing Chris had been bringing someone into our home, our bed, using our things while I paid half the rent and had no idea. I didn't recognize the woman from the doorbell footage at first. Then I remembered Chris had mentioned a new coworker named Taylor who started about 6 months ago. He'd talked about her a few times, always casually, mentioning she was helping him with a project. I looked at his Instagram following and found her profile. It was the same woman from the doorbell camera. Taylor's Instagram was public. She posted regularly about her life, but nothing mentioning a boyfriend. I scrolled through months of posts and found subtle things. A coffee cup and some photos that matched our kitchen. A blanket in the background of one selfie that was definitely from our couch. A city view from what was clearly our apartment's balcony, but she'd cropped it to avoid obvious landmarks. I hired a private investigator anyway to confirm everything. Within a week, I had detailed reports. Taylor thought she was Chris's girlfriend. She had been seeing him for 6 months, and based on what she told her friends on social media and in conversations the investigator documented, she believed Chris lived alone. He told her his apartment was his, that he worked from home some days, which is why she could visit during work hours. Chris had been living completely separate lives. With me, he was the committed long-term boyfriend planning our future. With Taylor, he was the available bachelor with his own place who could host her anytime. He'd been juggling both relationships by keeping us on opposite schedules. I worked standard office hours. Taylor apparently had a flexible schedule, working nights and weekends as a nurse, which is why she was available during my workdays. The investigator found they'd also been going on dates and trips together. A weekend when Chris told me he was visiting his parents, he was actually at a beach resort with Taylor. She had posted Instagram stories from the trip, but tagged the location vaguely. Times Chris claimed to be working late, he was having dinner with her. The affair was extensive and carefully planned. Chris's company was having their annual holiday party next month. It was a huge event with over 200 employees, plus significant others and clients. Chris had been excited about it for weeks, saying this year was especially important because they were announcing promotions and he was up for department manager. Spouses and partners were encouraged to attend, and Chris had asked me to come months ago. What Chris didn't know was that Taylor also worked at the same company and would be attending the party. She would expect to go as his girlfriend. I wondered how he planned to handle that, and then realized he probably told Taylor he couldn't bring her because it was employees only, while telling me it was mandatory to bring partners. I contacted Taylor directly through Instagram. I sent her doorbell camera footage of her entering my apartment with her key, screenshots of our shared accounts showing she'd been using them, and photos of Chris and me together throughout our 5-year relationship with timestamps. I explained that Chris had been lying to both of us. She was devastated and angry. I asked if she wanted to help me expose him at the holiday party. She agreed immediately. The night of the party, I arrived as Chris's girlfriend like planned. Taylor came separately. Chris was networking and schmoozing, introducing me to colleagues and bosses as his longtime partner. I watched him spot Taylor across the room and saw the brief moment of panic before he composed himself. He made an excuse to step away from me and went to talk to her. I saw him trying to convince her to leave. Taylor texted me that he was saying I was his ex, who he felt obligated to bring as a friend. She played along and said she'd leave, then circled back to me. When dinner started and the promotion announcements began, Taylor and I walked up to the microphone together during the open comment section. The organizers thought we were giving toasts. Instead, we presented a detailed timeline of Chris's double life. I showed photos proving our 5-year relationship and our shared apartment. Taylor showed evidence of their 6-month relationship where Chris claimed to be single. We had doorbell footage, streaming account history, text messages, everything displayed on the venue's screens. We explained how Chris had been lying to both of us, using our apartment as his own, manipulating schedules to keep us separate. The room went silent. Chris's boss looked furious. Colleagues were whispering and staring. Chris tried to interrupt, but security escorted him out at his boss's request. Several people came up to us afterward, saying they'd suspected something was off but never imagined this. Chris didn't get the promotion. His reputation at work was destroyed. Taylor and I both left him immediately, and she moved out all his things from our apartment while he was dealing with the aftermath. He tried to claim we were both crazy and vindictive, that we'd misunderstood everything, but too many people had seen the evidence. Some people think we should have handled it privately, that ruining his career was excessive. But he built that career on lies while betraying both of us. He used my home and my trust to create a false life with someone else. Taylor lost 6 months believing in a relationship that was completely fake. Chris moved back with his parents. Taylor and I occasionally get coffee now, bonded by the bizarre experience of discovering we were both dating the same man. I'm still processing everything and working through trust issues in therapy, but I don't regret exposing him publicly. He made his choices, and sometimes those choices have public consequences. I learned about my wife's affair from our shared fitness app that tracks heart rate. I, 37, have been married to my wife Nicole, 35, for 8 years. We're both into fitness and wellness, so we share a health tracking app that syncs data from our smartwatches. We like seeing each other's progress and sometimes do challenges together. 2 weeks ago, I was looking at our monthly fitness comparison when I noticed something odd about Nicole's workout patterns. Her heart rate data showed intense cardio sessions 3 times a week, always on Tuesday and Thursday evenings around 8 p.m. and Saturday mornings around 10 a.m. But Nicole's calendar showed yoga classes during those exact times. Yoga doesn't typically spike your heart rate to 150-160 BPM for sustained periods. The elevated heart rate patterns looked more like running or intense cardio, not the gentle flow yoga she claimed to be doing. I checked the location data that the app tracks. Her workouts on those days were being logged at an address 15 miles from the yoga studio she said she attended. I looked up the address. It was a residential area, no gyms or fitness studios nearby, just houses and apartments. The GPS showed she'd been going to this exact location 3 times a week for the past 4 months. I started looking at other data the app tracked. On those same days, Nicole's sleep tracking showed she went to sleep much later than normal, sometimes not until 2 or 3 a.m., even though she'd get home by 10 p.m., claiming she was exhausted from yoga. Her resting heart rate on those mornings was elevated, suggesting poor sleep quality or stress. But she'd tell me she slept great. The app also tracked daily steps and movement. On her yoga days, she'd have significantly more steps than a typical yoga class would account for. The activity levels didn't match her story at all. I checked older data going back 6 months. The pattern started 4 months ago suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch in her routine. I created a fake profile on social media and started searching for people who lived near that address where Nicole's workouts were being tracked. I found several profiles of people in that neighborhood. One account belonged to a man named Trevor, 33, whose bio said he was a personal trainer. His Instagram showed him posting workout content from what looked like a home gym setup. I scrolled through Trevor's posts and found photos that made my stomach drop. In the background of one mirror selfie showing his home gym equipment, there was a yoga mat that looked identical to the one Nicole had bought recently. Another post from 3 months ago showed a woman's hand in the corner of a photo, wearing a bracelet I'd given Nicole for her birthday. The timestamp matched one of her yoga class days. I hired a private investigator who confirmed my suspicions within days. Nicole had been going to Trevor's house 3 times a week for the past 4 months. The PI got photos of them together through his windows, clearly intimate, working out together in his home gym but also kissing, sitting close on his couch, acting like a couple. The elevated heart rate data suddenly made horrible sense. The PI discovered they'd met at a real yoga class Nicole attended about 6 months ago. Trevor was subbing for the regular instructor. They'd exchanged numbers to discuss personal training, and it evolved from there. Nicole had stopped going to actual yoga classes 4 months ago and started going to Trevor's house instead, telling me she was still attending her regular studio. I looked at our credit card statements with new context. Charges I'd assumed were from the yoga studio were actually from a juice bar near Trevor's house that Nicole visited after seeing him. What she called her post-yoga smoothie routine was actually stopping by this juice bar after leaving Trevor's place. The fitness app had documented her real activity while she lied about where she was. I checked Nicole's messages on the app's social features. She and Trevor were connected as workout buddies. Their direct messages were carefully worded, but clearly showed a relationship beyond training. They discussed missing each other, made plans to meet, used inside jokes. Trevor would comment on Nicole's workout data with messages like, "Great session today," on days she'd been at his house. The worst part was reading through their workout history together. The app showed they'd done partner workouts regularly, a feature meant for couples exercising together. They'd completed challenges as a team, earned badges for consistency, celebrated fitness milestones. Nicole was using our wellness app to conduct her affair, documenting it in data I could access the whole time. Nicole was participating in a major charity fitness event next month that she'd been training for all year. It was a huge community event with over 500 participants, including sponsors, families, and spectators. The event organizers had asked participants to share their training journey, and Nicole had volunteered to speak about her fitness transformation during the opening ceremony. She'd been excited about the public speaking opportunity for weeks. I contacted the event organizers and explained I was Nicole's husband and wanted to contribute to her presentation with data showing her training progress. They loved the idea and gave me access to add content to the slideshow that would display during her speech. I created a detailed presentation using data from our shared fitness app. The day of the event, hundreds of people gathered. Nicole was energized and confident, ready to speak about dedication and transformation. When it was her turn, she took the microphone and began talking about her fitness journey over the past 4 months. She mentioned her yoga practice and how it had changed her life, brought her peace, and improved her health. Then the slideshow began. The first slides showed Nicole's impressive fitness data, her consistency, her improved metrics. The crowd applauded. Then the presentation shifted. I showed the location data from her smartwatch, mapping where her workouts actually occurred 3 times a week, not at a yoga studio, but at a residential address. I displayed the heart rate data showing intense cardiovascular activity inconsistent with yoga. I included screenshots showing her sleep disruption patterns on those nights, her elevated stress markers, all the data that told the real story. Then I showed photos the PI had taken of Nicole at Trevor's house, matched with timestamps from the fitness app, proving she was there during her supposed yoga classes. Her heart rate spikes corresponded exactly with times she was at his house. The crowd went silent. Nicole stood frozen at the microphone. I included messages from the app between Nicole and Trevor, their partner workout history, the badges they'd earned together as a fitness couple. Everything displayed on large screens in front of hundreds of people, including our friends, her family, and community members she wanted to impress. Nicole tried to stop the presentation, but the organizers had already let it play through, confused about what was happening. Trevor was in the crowd, attending to support Nicole, and people around him started recognizing him from the photos. Nicole's parents were in the front row, looking devastated. I stood up from the audience and told everyone that while Nicole had been claiming to attend yoga classes and telling me about her peaceful practice, she'd actually been having an affair with a personal trainer, documented entirely in the fitness data from the app we'd shared for years. Her transformation wasn't about yoga or wellness. It was about maintaining a relationship with someone else. The event coordinators asked us all to leave. Nicole's speaking opportunity was destroyed. Her fitness community friends learned the truth about her training sessions. Trevor left immediately, embarrassed. Nicole tried to follow me, but I'd already gotten in my car. Nicole has tried calling and texting hundreds of times. Her reputation in our fitness community is ruined. Several friends have reached out saying they noticed she'd been acting different but never suspected this. Her family is disappointed in her. Trevor apparently ended things immediately, not wanting the drama. I filed for divorce the next week with all the data from the app as evidence of her affair. Some people think I went too far exposing her at a public charity event where she was volunteering. But Nicole had volunteered to speak publicly about her transformation while lying to everyone about what she was actually doing. She'd been using our shared wellness app to conduct and document her affair. The divorce is moving forward. I'm dealing with the betrayal by focusing on my own actual fitness routine, without someone lying about theirs. Sometimes I think about how the smartwatch data revealed everything, how technology, meant to help us stay connected, actually showed me the truth she was hiding. Nicole lost her marriage, her fitness community respect, and her speaking opportunity, all because the data told a story different from her lies. I got a wedding invitation addressed to my girlfriend and her +1 that wasn't me. I, 29, have been dating my girlfriend, Sarah, 28, for 3 years. We don't live together yet, but we're serious and talk about marriage often. Last week, a fancy wedding invitation arrived at my apartment addressed to Sarah Martinez, plus guest. It was forwarded from an old address she'd lived at before we met. I texted her a photo asking if she knew these people getting married, Marcus and Jennifer. She said no, and that it must be a mistake, maybe someone with the same name. Something felt off about her response. It was too quick and too dismissive. The invitation was expensive, custom designed, clearly not a mass mailing mistake. I looked up the wedding venue online. It was happening in 2 weeks at an upscale location about 40 minutes from our city. The couple had a wedding website with their story and details. I clicked through and found the wedding party photos. Sarah was in one of the photos. She was listed as a bridesmaid for Jennifer, described as Jennifer's college roommate and dear friend. But Sarah had always told me she lost touch with her college roommates and didn't really keep those friendships after graduation. The website showed photos from their friendship over the years, including recent ones from just a few months ago, at what looked like a bachelorette party. I was confused more than suspicious at first. Maybe Sarah had reconnected with old friends and didn't mention it? But why lie about receiving the invitation? I looked through Sarah's social media, which she kept pretty private. I'd never noticed Jennifer in any of her posts. I searched for Jennifer's profile and found it. Her photos were public. There were dozens of pictures with Sarah over the past 3 years, the entire time Sarah and I had been dating. But in every single photo with Jennifer's friend group, there was a man with his arm around Sarah, the same man in multiple photos from different events and gatherings. He was tagged in some photos as Ryan Chen. I looked at his profile. His relationship status said, "In a relationship with Sarah Martinez since 3 years ago." The exact time Sarah and I started dating. I felt sick scrolling through Ryan's profile. He had couple photos with Sarah from the past 3 years. Beach vacations, holiday celebrations, dinner dates, hiking trips. Some were taken on weekends when Sarah told me she was visiting her parents or busy with work projects. One photo was from a ski trip, dated the same week Sarah said she was at a work conference. I recognized the necklace she was wearing in Ryan's photo as one I'd given her for Christmas. Ryan's Instagram stories from the past few weeks showed them together regularly. Movie nights, cooking dinner together, walking a dog I'd never seen before. In his bio, he listed their anniversary date, which was within days of when Sarah and I started dating. She'd been dating both of us simultaneously for 3 years. I looked at Jennifer's wedding website again. The description of the wedding party mentioned that Ryan was the best man, Marcus's brother. So Sarah was integrated into this entire friend group as Ryan's girlfriend, while maintaining her separate relationship with me. I checked her stories and posts. She was careful, never posting photos with Ryan, keeping our relationship and that one completely separate online. I started going through my own memories with new context. Times Sarah was unavailable on weekends, she was with Ryan. Holidays, she said she was spending with family, she was probably with his family. The dog in Ryan's photos explained why she sometimes smelled like dog when we met up, something she blamed on a coworker's pet. She'd been living a double life, perfectly, keeping 2 relationships in different social circles. I created a fake profile and messaged Ryan directly, pretending to be someone who thought I recognized Sarah from somewhere. I asked if he was dating Sarah Martinez. He confirmed proudly that yes, that was his girlfriend of 3 years and they were very happy. I asked if they lived together. He said not yet, but they were planning to move in together after his brother's wedding next month. I contacted Jennifer through her wedding website's message system. I explained that I'd received a forwarded invitation and was Sarah's boyfriend, asking if there was a mistake. Jennifer responded confused, saying Sarah was in a relationship with Ryan, Marcus's brother, and had been for years. She asked if I was some ex-boyfriend causing drama. I sent her photos of me and Sarah together from the past month with timestamps. Jennifer stopped responding. I decided to attend the wedding. The invitation technically included a +1 for Sarah, and I had proof I'd received it. I RSVP'd online using the guest code from the invitation, but left Sarah's response blank. The website didn't show who specifically responded, just the number count. I bought a nice suit and planned to arrive right before the ceremony started. The wedding day came and I drove to the venue. It was beautiful, exactly the kind of place Sarah would love. I recognized several people from Ryan's Instagram photos arriving. I waited in my car until 10 minutes before the ceremony, then walked in and found a seat near the back on the bride's side. Sarah came down the aisle as a bridesmaid, looking beautiful in a lavender dress. She didn't see me in the back. Ryan walked down as best man, and I watched them smile at each other from opposite sides of the altar. The ceremony was lovely. Then came the reception. I waited through cocktail hour in a corner, watching Sarah and Ryan together. They were affectionate, comfortable, clearly an established couple in this friend group. During dinner, I approached their table. Sarah saw me, and her face went completely white. Ryan looked confused. I introduced myself to the table as Sarah's boyfriend of 3 years, the same length of time she'd apparently been dating Ryan. The table went silent. Ryan asked what I was talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed photos of Sarah and me together, recent ones with dates visible. Sarah tried to say I was lying, that I was an ex stalking her. I showed text messages, our couple photos from throughout the years, proof of our relationship that was undeniable. Jennifer, the bride, came over demanding to know what was happening at her wedding. I apologized for the disruption, but explained that Sarah had been dating both me and Ryan simultaneously for 3 years. I showed Jennifer the photos she'd asked for in her messages. Ryan was looking at his own phone, pulling up photos of him and Sarah from the exact same time periods I had mine. Sarah tried to leave, but Ryan stood up demanding answers. She claimed it was complicated, that we'd been on a break when she met Ryan and things got confused. I pointed out we'd never been on a break. We'd been consistently together for 3 years. Ryan said the same. Other wedding guests were watching now. Sarah finally broke down and admitted she'd been seeing both of us, that it started as a mistake and she couldn't figure out how to end either relationship. The bride asked us all to leave. Her wedding was being ruined by Sarah's drama. We went outside and continued the confrontation in the parking lot. Ryan and I compared notes and realized the extent of Sarah's deception. She'd kept us in completely separate social circles, used work and family as excuses to juggle schedules, and maintained 2 full relationships without either of us suspecting. Ryan ended things immediately. I did the same. Sarah tried to apologize to both of us, crying and saying she loved us both and didn't know what to do. But she'd had 3 years to figure it out, and instead chose to lie to everyone. Ryan and I actually talked for an hour afterward, commiserating about the situation. He mentioned Sarah had been pushing to move in together, probably planning to end things with me once she did. Sarah has tried contacting both of us constantly. Some mutual friends think I ruined someone's wedding over relationship drama and should have handled it privately. But I'd received a legitimate invitation, and exposing Sarah's lies when both of her worlds collided seemed like the right moment. Ryan agrees. We've actually become friends in a weird way, bonded by the bizarre experience of dating the same woman for 3 years without knowing. I'm working through trust issues with a therapist now. The idea that someone can lie so consistently and completely for years is terrifying. Sarah apparently moved to a different city after losing both relationships and her entire friend group, who all felt betrayed by her deception. I got a digital photo frame as a gift that pulled photos from my husband's cloud account. I, 33, received a digital photo frame last month as an early birthday gift from my husband Tyler, 35. We've been married for 6 years, and he knows I love displaying memories around our house. The frame was one of those smart ones that connects to cloud storage and cycles through photos automatically. Tyler set it up for me, connecting it to his PhotoCloud account since he takes most of our pictures with his phone. For the first few days, the frame displayed exactly what I expected. Wedding photos, vacation pictures, snapshots of us with friends and family. I placed it on my desk in my home office where I work remotely. Then, one afternoon, while I was on a video call, a photo appeared on the frame that made me freeze mid-sentence. Tyler was in the photo with a woman I didn't recognize, both of them dressed up at what looked like a nice restaurant, sitting very close together. I ended my call early and stared at the frame, waiting for more photos. Over the next hour, several more appeared mixed in with our normal pictures. Tyler and this same woman at a beach, hiking together, in what looked like a hotel room sitting on a bed. They weren't just friendly photos, they were clearly romantic. In one photo, they were kissing. The frame was randomly pulling from Tyler's entire photo library, including pictures I was never supposed to see. I grabbed my laptop and logged into Tyler's cloud account using credentials we'd always shared openly. He had thousands of photos stored. I started searching through folders and found one labeled with random numbers and letters, clearly an attempt to hide it. Inside were over 200 photos, spanning what looked like an entire year. Tyler with this woman in various locations, different seasons, obviously documenting a long-term relationship. The metadata on the photos showed dates, locations, everything. Photos from weekends Tyler told me he was on work trips. Pictures from evenings he claimed to be working late. Restaurant dates, hotel stays, casual moments that showed intimacy and comfort between them. One folder was labeled Our Anniversary, dated 6 months ago, showing them at a romantic dinner celebrating something I knew nothing about. I spent the entire day going through Tyler's photo cloud while the digital frame continued its slideshow on my desk, occasionally displaying another affair photo between our legitimate family pictures. The juxtaposition was surreal and painful. Our wedding photo would appear, then 5 minutes later a photo of Tyler kissing someone else. I found photos with geotags that revealed the woman's name through tagged locations. She was Claire, and several photos were taken at places she'd tagged on social media. Her Instagram was public and showed the same locations from Tyler's photos, carefully cropped to avoid showing him, but clearly the same moments. A beach sunset photo on her account from March matched one in Tyler's cloud from the same day, same angle, showing they'd been together. Claire's social media revealed she was 29, worked in marketing, and had recently moved to our city about a year ago. The timeline matched when photos of her started appearing in Tyler's cloud. They'd apparently met around then and built an entire relationship. Her posts never showed Tyler's face, probably at his request, but there were hints everywhere. A man's hand in photos, a jacket I recognized as Tyler's in the background. Locations Tyler had told me he visited alone. I hired a private investigator who confirmed everything within days. Tyler had been seeing Claire for 13 months. They met at a networking event, and the relationship developed quickly. They saw each other 2 or 3 times a week, acted like a couple in public places they thought I'd never visit, and had taken several trips together while Tyler told me he was traveling for work. The PI discovered Tyler had been planning to tell me about Claire eventually. Messages between them discussed when would be the right time, how to approach it, whether Tyler should ask for divorce or separation first. Claire had been pressuring him to make a decision. She knew Tyler was married, but Tyler had apparently painted our marriage as troubled and ending naturally. I kept the digital photo frame running on my desk while I worked, watching it randomly display evidence of Tyler's betrayal throughout the day. It became almost surreal how the frame would show our happy wedding photo, then 30 minutes later show Tyler with Claire on what was clearly a romantic weekend. The frame was designed to celebrate memories, but it was revealing the destruction of everything I thought our marriage was. Tyler worked for a tech company that was hosting a major product launch event in 3 weeks. It was their biggest event of the year, with over 500 attendees, including investors, media, clients, and employees with their families. Tyler had been involved in the project for months and was excited about the launch. Spouses and partners were invited, and Tyler had confirmed I'd be attending weeks ago. I decided to use the same technology that revealed his affair as the method to expose it. I contacted the event's marketing team and offered to create a digital display installation celebrating Tyler's contribution to the project. They loved the idea and gave me access to set up large digital photo frames throughout the venue that would cycle through images during the event. I created a collection of photos from Tyler's cloud for the installation. Mixed in with legitimate work photos and project milestones were the photos of his affair with Claire. The digital frames would display everything randomly, just like the one on my desk had, so attendees would see normal work content interrupted by photos of Tyler's double life. The night of the product launch, the venue had 10 large digital frames strategically placed throughout the space. Tyler was proud and excited, networking and introducing me to colleagues. The frames started their slideshow early in the evening, displaying project photos, team celebrations, development milestones. Everything seemed professional and appropriate. Then, Claire's face appeared on one of the frames, kissing Tyler in what was clearly a romantic photo. Someone near that frame noticed and looked confused. 5 minutes later, another frame showed Tyler and Claire at a beach, his arm around her waist. More people started noticing. As the evening progressed, more affair photos cycled through randomly on different frames throughout the venue. Tyler with Claire at restaurants, hotels, intimate moments, all displayed publicly in rotation with his work photos. People started pulling out phones, taking pictures of the frames. Tyler noticed people staring and whispering, then saw one of the digital displays showing him with Claire in a hotel room. His face went white. He tried to find me to ask what was happening, but I was already near the exit. Before I left, I took the microphone during a lull in presentations. I explained to everyone that the digital photo frames were pulling from Tyler's actual photo cloud, just like the digital frame he'd given me that had revealed his 13-month affair. I said the technology he'd gifted me had shown me the truth about his relationship with Claire, and I wanted everyone celebrating his professional achievements to see the complete picture of who they were honoring. Claire was in attendance as a marketing contact for one of their vendors. People around her started recognizing her from the photos. Tyler's boss looked furious about the personal drama disrupting their major launch. Several investors expressed concerns about judgment and character. Media people present started documenting the scandal instead of the product launch. Tyler's professional reputation was severely damaged. The product launch became known for the affair exposure rather than the technology being unveiled. His company didn't fire him, but his advancement opportunities were eliminated. Claire's company ended their vendor relationship with Tyler's firm, not wanting the association. Both Claire and I ended our relationships with Tyler immediately. He tried to claim I sabotaged his career moment vindictively, but I pointed out he'd sabotaged it himself by storing affair photos in the same cloud account he connected to my gift. He'd literally given me the evidence that destroyed his credibility. Some people think I went too far using his professional event for personal revenge. But Tyler had used his professional networking and work trips to facilitate and hide his affair for 13 months. The same technology he thought was a thoughtful gift to me became the tool that revealed everything he'd been hiding. The digital photo frame, designed to celebrate memories, ended up exposing the ones he'd kept secret. The divorce is moving forward. I kept the digital photo frame, disconnected from Tyler's cloud now, as an odd reminder of how technology, meant to preserve happiness, can reveal betrayal instead. Sometimes I think about how random that discovery was, how Tyler's own gift to me became the thing that exposed his double life, one randomly displayed photo at a time. I got a confirmation call for a romantic dinner reservation I never made. I, 35, have been married to my husband Eric, 37, for 9 years. We have a stable, comfortable relationship, or so I thought. 3 weeks ago, I received a phone call from an upscale restaurant downtown confirming our reservation for Saturday night at 8. I was confused because Eric and I hadn't made plans to go out that weekend. I told the hostess there must be a mistake. She checked the reservation details. It was under my full name, Melissa Torres, for a party of 2, booked for their private romantic corner table. She mentioned the guest had requested champagne service and their special anniversary package. I told her I definitely didn't make this reservation and asked who called it in. She said a man had booked it online using my name about 2 weeks ago, and this was their standard confirmation call. I thanked her and hung up feeling uneasy. I checked our joint credit card statements online. No charges from that restaurant. I looked at Eric's individual card that he used for work expenses. There it was, a charge from the restaurant for a deposit on a private table reservation. Eric had made a romantic reservation under my name, but was paying for it himself, which made no sense if he was planning to surprise me. I called the restaurant back and asked if I could see the reservation details. The manager was hesitant, but agreed to email me the confirmation since it was under my name. The reservation included special dietary requests I'd never mentioned because I don't have those allergies. Someone else's preferences were listed under my name. I started investigating further. I checked Eric's email that we technically shared, though I rarely looked at his. I found confirmations for other reservations at different restaurants over the past 6 months, all under my name, all on dates when Eric told me he was working late or traveling for work. He'd been using my identity to make reservations with someone else, probably to avoid being traced if anyone saw him out. I hired a private investigator who confirmed my suspicions within days. Eric had been seeing someone named Jasmine Park for about 8 months. She was 29, worked in marketing, and had no idea Eric was married. The investigator showed me photos of them together at the restaurants Eric had booked under my name. Jasmine clearly believed these were legitimate dates with someone named Eric Torres, who was single. I looked deeper into the reservation history. Eric had used my name for hotel bookings, spa appointments for couples, even concert tickets. If anyone investigated, the paper trail would lead to me, not him. He was essentially committing identity fraud to hide his affair, making it look like I was the one making these romantic arrangements, if anyone ever questioned him. The investigator discovered Jasmine had been posting about her new relationship on social media to her friends. She talked about dating someone wonderful named Eric Torres, never showing his face clearly in photos, excited about their future together. She had no idea he was married and living with his wife. Eric had told her he was divorced and lived alone. I found Eric's messages to Jasmine on an app I didn't know he had. He'd been romantic and attentive with her, making promises about their future, discussing moving in together eventually. He told her his work kept him busy, which explained why they couldn't see each other every day. Meanwhile, he was coming home to me, sleeping in our bed, maintaining our marriage while building a relationship with someone else, using my identity as cover. The upcoming Saturday reservation was supposedly for their 8-month anniversary. Eric had told me he was going to a work dinner that night with clients and would be home late. I called the restaurant and confirmed the reservation was still active under my name. I told them I'd be attending after all and asked them not to mention the call to anyone. I contacted Jasmine through social media using my real name and real photos. I introduced myself as Eric's wife of 9 years and sent her proof. Our marriage certificate, photos of us throughout our relationship, pictures from inside our shared home showing Eric's belongings everywhere, our joint bank account statements, everything that proved Eric was married and living with me. Jasmine was devastated and furious. She'd been completely deceived. I explained about the reservations under my name and suggested we both show up to the Saturday dinner. She agreed immediately. We coordinated our arrival times and planned exactly how to confront him. Saturday night came, and I got dressed nicely. Eric left an hour before his supposed work dinner, heading to the restaurant early. I gave him a 30-minute head start, then drove there myself. Jasmine arrived separately. We met in the restaurant's lobby and confirmed we were both ready. The hostess looked confused seeing me, since Eric was already seated in the private romantic corner waiting. We asked her to seat us at the table reserved under my name. She led us through the restaurant, and there was Eric, sitting alone at a candle-lit table, checking his phone, presumably waiting for Jasmine. His face went white when he saw both of us approaching together. Jasmine and I sat down on either side of him. The hostess asked if everything was all right. I told her this was the correct party for the reservation under my name, Melissa Torres. Eric tried to stand up, but I told him to sit down and explain himself. Jasmine demanded to know why he'd lied about being divorced. Eric attempted to claim this was a misunderstanding, that Jasmine and I had it wrong somehow. I pulled out printed copies of all the reservations he'd made under my name with Jasmine, receipts showing he'd used my identity for months to cover his tracks. Jasmine showed him her phone with his messages promising her a future together while he was married to me. Other diners were starting to notice the commotion. The restaurant manager came over asking if there was a problem. I explained calmly that my husband had been using my name fraudulently to book reservations for his affair, and I was simply attending the dinner reservation made under my identity. I showed the manager my ID, proving I was actually Melissa Torres. The manager asked Eric to settle his bill and leave. Eric tried to apologize to both of us, but Jasmine stood up and threw her water in his face. She told him he was pathetic for lying to both of us. I told him I'd be filing for divorce and would be reporting the identity fraud he'd committed by using my name without permission for months. We left Eric sitting alone at the romantic table he'd set up. Jasmine and I went to a different restaurant and had dinner together, comparing notes about his lies. She'd been completely deceived while I'd been kept in the dark. We realized Eric had been carefully managing his time and lies to maintain both relationships. Eric tried calling me repeatedly that night. I didn't answer. I filed for divorce the following week with all the evidence of his affair and identity fraud. His lawyer advised him not to contest anything given the circumstances. Jasmine ended things immediately and blocked Eric on everything. The divorce moved quickly. Some of Eric's family members think I humiliated him unnecessarily at the restaurant instead of handling things privately. But he'd been committing fraud using my identity to facilitate his affair. He'd set up that romantic dinner using my name. I simply showed up to the reservation he'd made. Eric's professional reputation suffered when word spread about the identity fraud aspect. Several colleagues distanced themselves from him. Jasmine moved on and is dating someone else now. I'm rebuilding my life without someone who used my identity as a shield for his lies. Sometimes I think about how long Eric might have continued if he hadn't gotten sloppy with that confirmation call. But I'm glad I found out when I did, rather than wasting more years with someone capable of such elaborate deception. I found out I was pregnant the same week I discovered my husband's affair. I, 28, took a pregnancy test 2 weeks ago that came back positive. My husband Jason, 30, and I have been married for 4 years and had been trying to conceive for the past year. I was thrilled and immediately started planning a special way to tell him. I wanted to make it memorable, so I decided to create a surprise dinner at home with a custom photo book showing our journey together, ending with ultrasound photos and the positive pregnancy test. I reached out to Jason's best friend Mike to help me coordinate getting Jason home at the right time without spoiling the surprise. Mike seemed nervous on the phone and said he needed to talk to me in person first. That felt strange, but I agreed to meet him for coffee the next day. When we met, Mike looked uncomfortable and kept hesitating. Finally, he told me he couldn't help with the surprise because he'd been covering for Jason for months. Jason had been having an affair with a woman named Vanessa who worked at his company. Mike had been providing alibis when Jason claimed to be at sports events or guys' nights out. Mike said he couldn't keep lying, especially now that I was trying to plan something special. He felt terrible and offered to show me proof if I didn't believe him. Mike had text messages from Jason asking him to cover for various dates and times, screenshots where Jason thanked Mike for being his alibi, photos Mike had accidentally been included in on group chats that showed Jason with Vanessa at places he'd told me were work events. Mike explained that several of Jason's friends knew about the affair and had been helping him hide it. They thought it was just a fling that would blow over. I felt betrayed, not just by Jason but by an entire group of people who had been lying to me. I asked Mike how long this had been going on. He said, at least 6 months, maybe longer. The affair had started around the time Jason and I began seriously trying for a baby. While I was tracking ovulation and planning our future family, Jason was building a relationship with someone else. Mike gave me Vanessa's contact information and told me she worked in Jason's department as a project manager. I looked her up on social media. She was 26, attractive, and her Instagram showed a lifestyle of travel and social events. Some photos had Jason in the background, carefully cropped or angled so he wasn't obvious. One photo from a beach trip was dated during a weekend Jason told me he was at a conference. I went through Jason's phone while he was sleeping. He'd gotten careless or thought I'd never check. Messages with Vanessa went back 7 months. They were explicitly romantic and discussed their feelings for each other. Jason told her he was confused about his marriage, that he'd married young and wasn't sure anymore. He never mentioned we were actively trying to have a baby. The messages revealed Jason had told Vanessa he was considering divorce. They'd discussed what their life could be like together if he left me. Vanessa had been pressuring him to make a decision. In recent messages, Jason said he needed more time to figure things out. He was stringing along both of us, keeping me as his wife while exploring a relationship with her. I found photos Jason had taken with Vanessa at restaurants, parks, even at his office after hours. Some were intimate, clearly showing them as a couple. Jason had been living a double life, coming home to me while maintaining a full relationship with someone else. I felt sick realizing I was pregnant with his child while he was planning a potential future with another woman. I scheduled a doctor's appointment to confirm the pregnancy and started seeing a therapist to process everything. I didn't confront Jason yet. I needed time to decide what to do. I was facing the reality of being pregnant while my marriage was falling apart. Part of me wanted to tell Jason about the baby immediately, but I knew I needed to address the affair first. I hired a private investigator to document everything properly before making any decisions. The PI followed Jason for 2 weeks and confirmed he was seeing Vanessa regularly. They met for lunch several times a week, had dinner dates when Jason told me he was working late, and spent time at her apartment. The PI got photos of them together acting like a couple in public. Jason's company was hosting a major awards banquet next month, where they'd be recognizing outstanding employees. Jason had been nominated for a leadership award and was excited about potentially winning. The event would have over 300 attendees, including executives, clients, and families. Partners were expected to attend, and Jason had confirmed I'd be coming with him weeks ago. I confirmed through the PI that Vanessa would also be attending as she worked in the same department. I wondered how Jason planned to handle having both of us at the same event. I contacted Vanessa directly through a professional networking message, introducing myself as Jason's wife and requesting a private meeting. She agreed, probably curious about why Jason's wife was reaching out. When we met, I showed Vanessa proof of my marriage to Jason, our wedding photos, our home together, documentation showing we'd been married for 4 years. She went pale. She claimed Jason told her he was divorced and had been single for over a year. I showed her recent photos of us together, our joint bank accounts, everything proving Jason was lying to her about his relationship status. Vanessa was devastated and angry. She'd been deceived as completely as I had. I told her about the pregnancy, showing her the positive test and ultrasound photos I'd planned to surprise Jason with. She started crying, realizing Jason had been trying to have a baby with me while telling her he was single and available. I asked if she'd help me confront him at the awards banquet. She agreed without hesitation. The night of the banquet, I arrived with Jason as his wife. Vanessa came separately. Jason was networking and confident, completely unaware both of us knew the truth. During dinner, his name was called for the leadership award. He went on stage to accept it and give a speech about integrity and dedication. When he finished, I walked up to the microphone. I congratulated Jason on his award and said I had a special announcement about our future together. The room went quiet. I told everyone I was pregnant with our first child, showing the ultrasound photo on the screen behind me. Jason looked genuinely shocked and happy for a moment. Then I asked Vanessa to join me on stage. She came up and stood next to me. I explained that while Jason and I were trying to have a baby, he was also in a 7-month relationship with Vanessa, telling her he was divorced and single. I showed screenshots of his messages to both of us, his lies to each of us displayed side by side on the venue's screens. The ballroom erupted in shocked whispers. Jason's boss looked furious. His award for leadership and integrity now seemed like a cruel irony. Vanessa confirmed everything I said, explaining how Jason had deceived her about his marital status. She told the crowd she would never have gotten involved if she'd known he was married, let alone trying to start a family. Jason tried to take the microphone, but I told him everyone deserved to know that the man receiving an integrity award had been lying to everyone in his life. His colleagues had been watching him leave work for meetings that were actually dates with Vanessa. His friends had been covering for him. His wife had been planning to celebrate his child while he planned a future with someone else. I walked off stage with Vanessa. We left together while Jason stood there holding his leadership award. His professional reputation was destroyed that night. His boss called him into a meeting the following week, and while they couldn't fire him for his personal life, his leadership advancement opportunities were gone. Several colleagues who had respected him distanced themselves. Vanessa ended all contact with Jason immediately. I filed for divorce and am preparing to raise my child as a single mother. Jason has tried to apologize and wants to be involved with the baby, but I can't trust him after watching him lie to everyone for 7 months. Some people think I shouldn't have exposed him so publicly, especially at a professional event while announcing my pregnancy. But Jason had been presenting himself as a man of integrity while betraying everyone who trusted him. He was preparing to accept an award for leadership while leading a double life. His company and colleagues deserved to know who they were honoring. Vanessa deserved to see the truth, and I deserved to stop being the only one who didn't know my husband was planning to leave me. The pregnancy has been bittersweet. I'm excited about becoming a mother, but grieving the family I thought we'd be. Jason's parents have been supportive and want to be involved with their grandchild despite everything. My own family has rallied around me. Sometimes I question if humiliating him publicly was the right choice. But then I remember he was accepting an integrity award while lying to everyone, and I stopped feeling guilty. I found my wife's secret podcast where she documents her affair in excruciating detail. I, 34, have been married to my wife Jessica, 32, for 6 years. We met in college and always shared everything, or so I thought. 3 weeks ago, I was looking for a new podcast to listen to during my commute and stumbled across one called Living My Truth in the trending relationship category. The description mentioned it was about a woman navigating a complicated love situation while maintaining her marriage. I started listening out of curiosity during a long drive. The host had a voice filter and used fake names, but within 10 minutes, I realized I was listening to my wife. She described our house perfectly, mentioned details about our daily routine, talked about our dog by breed and personality. She called herself Morgan and called me by a different name, but every story was unmistakably about us. Then she started talking about him, a man she called Dev, who she'd been seeing for 18 months. She described their first meeting at a conference, their first kiss in a hotel room, how the affair developed. She talked about the guilt initially, then how it faded as she fell in love with him. She discussed juggling both relationships, the lies she told me, the elaborate cover stories she created. There were 23 episodes. Each one was 30 to 45 minutes of Jessica documenting her affair in intimate detail. She talked about sex with both of us, comparing our performance. She discussed her conflicted feelings about staying married while being in love with someone else. She mentioned considering leaving me, but enjoying the stability and financial security I provided. One episode was literally titled, "Why I'm Keeping Both of Them." The podcast had thousands of listeners. People commented on each episode offering advice, supporting her choices, criticizing her for cheating. Jessica responded to comments, engaging with her audience about her double life. She had built a community around documenting her betrayal of our marriage. I felt physically sick listening to strangers discuss my wife's affair like it was entertainment. I downloaded every episode and started cross-referencing details with my own calendar and memories. Every date she mentioned, every trip, every late night matched up perfectly with times she told me she was working late, visiting friends, or attending work events. The conference where she met Dev was one she actually attended for her job. The hotel room affair started in was paid for by her company during a business trip. I recognized Dev from her descriptions. She'd mentioned specific things about his job, his hobbies, his apartment location. I went through Jessica's social media following and found him. Devon Carter, works in the same industry, attended the same conferences. His Instagram showed travel that coincided with times Jessica was supposedly on work trips alone. One photo showed a coffee shop I recognized from the background details Jessica described in an episode. I hired a private investigator who confirmed everything. Devon lived across town, was single, and had been seeing Jessica regularly for a year and a half. They had dinner dates, weekend trips, and Devon came to our area frequently. The investigator found they'd been careless in public, holding hands at restaurants, kissing in parking lots, acting like a couple in places they thought I'd never go. What disturbed me most was reading through the podcast comments. People knew intimate details about my life, my insecurities, my habits. Jessica had shared things I told her in confidence, twisting them for entertainment. She'd made jokes about my appearance, my career, my family. One episode discussed how boring I was in bed compared to Devon. Another talked about how I suspected nothing, despite obvious signs. Jessica had been monetizing the podcast too. She had sponsorships and was making money talking about her affair. Ads for relationship therapy apps and dating services ran between segments where she described cheating on me. She'd turned our marriage into content, our life together into a storyline for strangers to consume while she profited from it. I consulted a lawyer who confirmed the podcast was legal since she'd used fake names and a voice filter, but it could support my divorce case. I gathered everything. Downloaded episodes, screenshots of comments, evidence of her meeting Devon, financial records showing her podcast income. Then, I planned my response carefully. Jessica's company was hosting their annual awards ceremony next month. It was a massive event with over 300 people, including clients, partners, and industry leaders. Jessica had been nominated for an award recognizing excellence in her field. She'd been excited for weeks, buying a new dress, practicing her acceptance speech in case she won. I was expected to attend as her supportive husband. I contacted the event coordinator and explained that I wanted to create a surprise tribute video for Jessica in case she won. The coordinator thought it was sweet and agreed to have it ready to play. I spent 2 weeks creating the video using clips from Jessica's podcast, her voice unfiltered so everyone would recognize it, matched with photos of us throughout our marriage. The night of the ceremony, we arrived together. Jessica was nervous and excited. She mingled with colleagues and clients, introducing me as her devoted husband. I watched her perform, being charming and professional, while I knew she'd be meeting Devon tomorrow based on the latest podcast episode she'd recorded. Jessica won her award. She went on stage, gave a gracious speech thanking colleagues and making sure to thank me for my unwavering support. Everyone applauded. Then, the coordinator announced a special surprise tribute from her husband. Jessica looked confused but pleased. The lights dimmed, and my video played on the massive screen behind her. It started with our wedding photos, happy memories. Then it transitioned to audio clips from her podcast. Her voice, unfiltered now, describing meeting Devon, falling in love while married, comparing us, discussing keeping both relationships for different benefits. The clips played over screenshots of her podcast page showing episode titles like Why I'm Keeping Both of Them and The Sex Life Comparison. I included clips where she mocked me, shared private details about our life, and discussed her plans to continue the affair indefinitely. I showed comments from listeners and her responses engaging with her audience about our marriage. The financial records showing she was profiting from content about betraying me. Everything displayed in front of her entire professional network. The room went completely silent. Jessica stood frozen on stage. Then chaos erupted. People were gasping, whispering, some pulling out phones. Her boss looked furious. Clients were staring. I walked out through the side exit while the video was still playing. Jessica tried calling me immediately, but I didn't answer. Her career took a massive hit. Several clients dropped her company citing moral concerns. Her boss was livid about the professional embarrassment at their biggest event of the year. Jessica was placed on leave while they decided how to handle the situation. Devin apparently ended things immediately when he realized their affair had been broadcast to hundreds of people. Jessica came home to find I'd moved out and left divorce papers. She sent dozens of messages claiming the podcast was fiction, that she'd exaggerated for entertainment. But I had the evidence proving every episode was real. The podcast was taken down, but people had saved episodes and were sharing them. Jessica's professional reputation was destroyed in her industry. Some people think I went too far exposing her so publicly at her career's biggest moment. But she'd been publicly documenting our marriage and her betrayal for 18 months, making money from it while I remained ignorant. The divorce is moving forward quickly. I'm rebuilding my life away from someone who turned our relationship into entertainment for thousands of strangers while sleeping with another man. Jessica lost her marriage, her relationship with Devin, her career trajectory, and her public reputation. Sometimes I wonder if I should have handled it privately. But then I remember she chose to make our private life public first. I just made sure the right people knew the truth. I found my husband's blog where he documents every detail of his affair. I, 35, was searching for blogs about marriage advice 3 weeks ago, trying to find resources to help with what I thought were normal relationship rough patches. My husband Derek, 37, and I have been married for 9 years, and lately he'd seemed distant. I was looking for articles about rekindling romance when I stumbled across a blog called Living Double that caught my attention because of its honest writing about relationship struggles. The blog was written by someone calling himself Jay, who described being married while falling for someone else. The writing was compelling and raw, discussing the guilt and excitement of having an affair. I started reading from the beginning, sympathizing with this person's complicated situation. Then I noticed specific details that felt eerily familiar. Jay wrote about his wife always making the same pasta dish on Sundays, a tradition in their household. I make homemade pasta every Sunday, Derek's favorite meal. Jay mentioned his wife collected vintage teacups and displayed them in a specific cabinet. I collect vintage teacups displayed in our dining room hutch. Jay described his wife's job as a middle school art teacher who comes home covered in paint. I'm a middle school art teacher. My stomach dropped as I kept reading. Jay's blog entries from the past 7 months documented an affair with someone he called M, who he'd met at a work conference. Derek had attended a conference 7 months ago. Jay wrote about sneaking away during lunch breaks to text M, feeling guilty eating dinner with his wife while thinking about someone else, planning secret weekend trips. Every detail matched my life with Derek. I scrolled through months of entries. Jay described our house, our routines, our conversations, all while discussing his growing relationship with M. He wrote about what he was learning about himself through this affair, how M challenged him intellectually in ways his wife supposedly didn't. He detailed intimate moments with M, alongside observations about his stale marriage, painting me as boring and predictable without naming me. I spent 2 days reading every single blog post, over 60 entries spanning 7 months. Derek had been documenting our entire life and his affair in vivid detail for thousands of readers. The blog had a significant following, with hundreds of comments on each post. People were invested in Jay's story, offering advice, supporting his choices, debating whether he should leave his wife or stay. I cross-referenced blog post dates with my calendar and Derek's schedule. An entry about a romantic weekend with M corresponded with a weekend Derek told me he was at a bachelor party. A post describing guilt after lying about working late matched a Tuesday 3 months ago when Derek came home at midnight, claiming project deadlines. Every blog entry had evidence in our real life. The blog revealed M's identity through details Derek carelessly included. She worked at his company in a different department, was divorced with no kids, loved hiking and craft beer. Derek had mentioned a new coworker named Morgan who fit this description, someone he'd occasionally bring up in conversation as just a colleague. Reading his blog posts about her, their connection was obviously romantic and sexual, nothing like the casual coworker relationship he'd portrayed to me. The comments on Derek's posts enraged me almost as much as the affair itself. Readers were encouraging him, romanticizing his situation, telling him to follow his heart. Some criticized him for being selfish, but most were supportive. They'd been watching our marriage deteriorate through Derek's biased narration, while I remained completely unaware I was a character in his public story. I hired a private investigator who confirmed everything Derek had written was true. He'd been seeing Morgan for 7 months, exactly matching the blog timeline. They met at coffee shops, took weekend trips, acted like a couple whenever they could. The PI got photos that matched descriptions from Derek's blog posts, proving this wasn't creative writing, but documentary of real events. I found Derek's draft posts saved on his laptop. He'd written about considering divorce, but worrying about logistics. He discussed whether M would want marriage or just preferred their current arrangement. He analyzed his feelings in lengthy paragraphs while I slept beside him each night, completely unaware I was being written about and dissected for entertainment online. Derek was scheduled to speak at a local writers' conference next month about maintaining creative projects alongside full-time work. He'd been invited because Living Double had gained popularity, and the organizers discovered he was local. Derek had been excited about this speaking opportunity for weeks, seeing it as validation of his writing. Over 300 aspiring writers and bloggers would attend. Derek had carefully maintained his anonymity online, never using real names or specific identifying details he thought would expose him. The conference organizers knew his real identity only because he'd submitted through an application process. I contacted them, explaining I was Derek's wife and the subject of his blog, offering to participate in his panel discussion about ethics in personal writing. They were shocked when I showed them proof that I was the wife Derek wrote about, that his blog wasn't fiction, but documentation of our real life and his real affair. They agreed to let me join the panel, thinking it would be an interesting perspective on writing about real people in your life. The conference day arrived, and Derek was confident, excited to discuss his blog with other writers. The panel was titled Truth and Fiction, Writing About Real Life. Derek sat on stage with 3 other bloggers and me. He didn't seem concerned about my presence, probably thinking I'd support him discussing a writing project he'd never mentioned to me. The moderator started by asking panelists to introduce their work. When it was Derek's turn, he discussed Living Double, without mentioning it was his blog about having an affair. He talked about the challenges of writing honestly while maintaining privacy. Then the moderator asked me to introduce myself. I explained I was Derek's wife of 9 years and the unwitting subject of Living Double. The room went completely silent. I had prepared a presentation showing Derek's blog posts side by side with proof they were about our real life. Our wedding photos next to his blog descriptions of his marriage. My teaching awards next to his posts about his wife's career. Evidence that every detail he'd written was real and identifiable as me. I showed posts where Derek described intimate details about our relationship, our bedroom, our arguments, our routines, all published online for thousands of strangers to read and comment on. I displayed entries about his affair with Morgan, including posts from days I'd cooked him dinner and asked about his day while he was thinking about her. I showed the comments section, where hundreds of people had been following our marriage's deterioration as entertainment. Derek tried to claim it was creative fiction, not real life. I pulled up photos the PI had taken, matching specific blog entries. A post about a weekend trip with M showed Derek and Morgan at the exact location he'd described. Blog entries about lying to his wife were proven true by screenshots of texts where he'd lied to me. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The audience was horrified. Several writers got up and left. Others started questioning Derek about consent and ethics of writing about real people without their knowledge. The moderator asked Derek directly if he'd published intimate details about his wife and documented an affair without anyone's permission. Derek couldn't defend himself. Morgan was in the audience, supporting Derek's speaking engagement. She looked mortified, realizing everyone now knew she was M from the blog. Several attendees approached me after expressing disgust that Derek had exploited our marriage for content. The conference organizers released a statement distancing themselves from Derek's unethical writing practices. Derek's blog was taken down within days after backlash from the writing community. His reputation as a writer was destroyed before it really began. Morgan ended their relationship, not wanting to be associated with the scandal. We're divorcing, and Derek tried to claim I violated his creative privacy by exposing him. My lawyer pointed out he'd published intimate details about our life without my consent for 7 months. Some people think I ruined his writing opportunity unnecessarily, that I should have confronted him privately. But Derek had made our marriage and his affair into public entertainment for thousands of readers without my knowledge or permission. He'd exploited the most intimate parts of our life for blog content and recognition. I simply made sure the audience at his first major speaking event knew the truth about his creative project. The divorce is progressing. I'm rebuilding my life without someone who documented my existence as a character in his affair story. Sometimes I think about those hundreds of commenters who watched our marriage fail through Derek's biased narration. How they were invested in a real relationship ending while I remained oblivious. Derek's need for creative validation and audience engagement ultimately exposed everything he was trying to hide. I found my husband's affair through his detailed restaurant reviews online. I, 34, have been married to my husband Marcus, 36, for 7 years. Last week, I was looking for a new restaurant to try for our upcoming anniversary dinner. I was scrolling through reviews on a popular food app when I recognized one of the reviewer profile photos. It was Marcus, using a photo I'd taken of him last year. I clicked on his profile out of curiosity, surprised he'd been writing reviews since he'd never mentioned it. His profile had over 60 reviews posted in the past year. I started reading them and immediately felt something was wrong. One review for an upscale steakhouse said, "Perfect romantic atmosphere for our 6-month anniversary celebration. My date loved the lobster, and we shared the chocolate souffle for dessert. Great place for special occasions with someone special." That restaurant review was dated 3 months ago. Marcus and I hadn't gone there, and 3 months ago wasn't any anniversary of ours. I kept reading. Another review for a hotel restaurant said, "Beautiful views for a weekend getaway. Breakfast in bed service was excellent. Will definitely return with my partner." The date on that review matched a weekend Marcus told me he was at a work conference. Review after review described romantic dinners, couples' experiences, intimate moments at restaurants and hotels I'd never been to with him. He wrote about candlelit dinners, anniversary celebrations that weren't ours, weekend trips I didn't know about. One review mentioned, "My girlfriend loved the wine selection at a vineyard." He'd been documenting an entire relationship with someone else through detailed restaurant reviews online. I checked the locations. Many were in our city, but at places Marcus told me he'd gone for work lunches or client meetings. Others were in cities he'd supposedly traveled to alone for business. The reviews painted a clear picture of an active romantic relationship spanning at least a year. I screenshot every single review Marcus had written and started cross-referencing with my own calendar and memories. A review praising a brunch spot for being perfect for lazy Sunday mornings together was dated a Sunday Marcus said he was golfing with colleagues. A review about a romantic bed and breakfast was from a weekend he'd told me he was visiting his brother. The details in his reviews were specific and personal. He described sharing dishes, inside jokes with his dining companion, meaningful conversations over wine. One review said, "This place will always be special because it's where we had our first real date 6 months ago." I counted back 6 months from that review date and realized it coincided with when Marcus started working late more frequently and seemed distracted at home. I looked at photos attached to some reviews. Marcus was careful not to include faces, but there were shots of 2 plates, 2 wine glasses, table settings for 2. In one photo, I could see a woman's hand wearing jewelry I didn't recognize across the table from Marcus's plate. Another photo showed the reflection in a restaurant window with Marcus sitting across from someone with long, dark hair. Definitely not me. I started searching for any identifying information in the reviews. One mentioned they were celebrating her getting a promotion at a pharmaceutical company. Another review referenced her being vegetarian, which helped narrow down which dishes in photos were hers. A review for a restaurant near the harbor mentioned it being close to where she works, giving me a general location. I hired a private investigator with this information. Within a week, the PI identified Marcus's girlfriend as Diana, 31, who worked at a pharmaceutical sales company in the Harbor District. She was vegetarian based on her own social media posts. The PI confirmed Marcus had been seeing her for over a year, and every review Marcus wrote corresponded with actual dates and trips they'd taken together. The PI got photos of Marcus and Diana together at several of the restaurants he'd reviewed. They looked comfortable and established as a couple. Diana had no idea Marcus was married based on her own social media, where she posted vague references to her boyfriend, but never showed his face, probably at Marcus's request. Marcus was being honored at his company's annual awards dinner next month for his sales achievements. It was a formal event with 300 people, including executives, clients, and employees with their spouses. I'd been planning to attend as his wife. Marcus had been excited about the recognition for weeks. I contacted the event coordinator and offered to create a tribute video for Marcus, highlighting his accomplishments. They loved the idea and agreed to play it during his award acceptance. I spent 2 weeks creating a presentation using Marcus's own restaurant reviews as the foundation. The night of the awards dinner, I arrived with Marcus as his supportive wife. He was confident and happy, networking with colleagues and introducing me to his boss. When his name was called for the Sales Achievement Award, he went on stage to accept it. After his brief speech, the coordinator announced a special tribute from his wife. The lights dimmed, and my video began playing on large screens throughout the ballroom. It started with professional photos of Marcus and highlights of his career. Then it transitioned to screenshots of his restaurant review profile. I displayed his reviews one by one, showing his detailed descriptions of romantic dinners, anniversary celebrations, weekend getaways, all dated and clearly describing a relationship that wasn't with me. I included the review where he called someone my girlfriend, the one celebrating our 6-month anniversary, the weekend getaway reviews from times he told me he was traveling alone for work. I showed photos from his reviews with 2 place settings, the woman's hand visible in one shot, all while Marcus's own words described intimate romantic experiences. The video included a timeline matching his reviews to his lies to me. The steakhouse dinner he reviewed was the night he said he had a client meeting. The bed and breakfast weekend was when he claimed to visit his brother. Every review exposed as evidence of sustained deception spanning over a year. The ballroom erupted in shocked whispers. Marcus stood on stage looking horrified. His boss's face went from confused to angry as he understood what was being displayed. I stood up from my table and told the room that while Marcus was accepting an award for his achievements, he'd also been achieving something else. Documenting an entire secret relationship through public restaurant reviews while lying to his wife about his whereabouts. Marcus tried to leave the stage, but his boss stopped him and demanded an explanation. Several colleagues pulled out their phones to look up Marcus's review profile themselves. Diana wasn't at the event, but several people recognized the harbor area restaurants Marcus had reviewed and knew about the pharmaceutical company there. Marcus's award was overshadowed completely. His boss told him they'd discuss this on Monday. Several clients who witnessed the presentation expressed concerns about his character and trustworthiness. Marcus left the event humiliated, while I stayed and talked with his shocked coworkers, some of whom apologized for not noticing anything was wrong. I filed for divorce the next week with printed copies of every review Marcus wrote. Diana found out through mutual connections and ended things with Marcus immediately when she realized he'd been married the entire time. Marcus was ultimately let go from his company due to the professional embarrassment and lost client trust from the public revelation. Some people think I destroyed his career unnecessarily by exposing him at a work event. But Marcus had been using work trips and client meetings as cover for his affair, lying to his employer about his activities. His reviews documented over a year of systematic deception. He'd written publicly about his affair for anyone to read, just assuming I'd never find them. The divorce is almost final. I'm rebuilding my life without someone who documented his betrayal in detailed public reviews. Sometimes I think about how Marcus's own words exposed him, how his need to share his experiences online became the evidence that ended everything. He literally wrote the story of his own downfall, one restaurant review at a time. I found my boyfriend's affair through his food delivery app order history. I, 31, have been dating my boyfriend, Nathan, 34, for 3 years. We don't live together, but we're committed and spend most weekends at each other's places. Last month, Nathan left his phone at my apartment after staying over. He called asking me to check if he had any important work messages. I unlocked his phone with the passcode he'd given me and checked his email like he asked. While I was there, a notification popped up from a food delivery app showing his order was being prepared. It was lunchtime, and I figured he was ordering at work. But the delivery address wasn't his office or his apartment. It was a residential address I didn't recognize in a neighborhood across town. The order was for 2 people, 2 entrees with specific modifications, clearly someone's regular preferences. I opened the delivery app to see if it was a mistake. The order history showed he'd been getting food delivered to that same address 2 or 3 times a week for the past 5 months. Always orders for 2 people. Sometimes breakfast, often dinner, occasionally late-night food. The pattern suggested someone lived there who Nathan visited regularly enough to order meals together. I checked the timestamps. Many of these deliveries happened on evenings when Nathan told me he was working late or had plans with friends. Tuesday nights, he claimed, were his standing basketball games, showed dinner deliveries at 8 p.m. to that address. Weekends, when he said he was busy with family, showed brunch orders there on Sunday mornings. He'd been lying about his schedule consistently for months. I wrote down the address and looked it up online. It was a condo building in a nice area. No businesses, just residential units. I checked Nathan's text messages and found conversations with someone named Sam, saved with no last name. The messages were casual but frequent, talking about dinner plans, what to watch, inside jokes. I realized Sam was probably who Nathan was ordering food with at that address. I drove to the address that evening. It was definitely a residential building with about 20 units. I sat in my car trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to confront Nathan immediately, but I needed to understand the full situation first. I waited. Around 7 p.m., Nathan's car pulled into the building's parking lot. He got out carrying takeout bags, the same order I'd seen on his delivery app, and walked into the building like he belonged there. I gave him 15 minutes, then called his phone. He answered sounding relaxed and said he was at home, just got back from the gym. Complete lie. I could hear background noise that didn't match his apartment. I asked what he was doing and he said he was making dinner and watching TV. While he was telling me this, I opened the delivery app on his phone that he'd left at my place and watched another order get placed to that same address for dessert. I hung up and sat in my car feeling numb. Nathan was lying about his location, lying about his plans, ordering meals with someone else while telling me he was home alone. I hired a private investigator the next day who confirmed Nathan had been seeing someone named Samantha who lived in that building. They'd been together for 6 months, overlapping significantly with our relationship. The PI got photos of them together at her condo, on her balcony, walking her dog in the neighborhood. They looked like a couple, comfortable and domestic. The food delivery orders made sense now. Nathan had been having regular dinner dates with Samantha, ordering in and spending evenings together while telling me he was busy elsewhere. He'd built a whole separate relationship routine with someone else. I went through Nathan's phone more carefully. He'd been careful with texts, keeping things ambiguous enough that I wouldn't suspect if I glanced at messages. But the delivery app told the real story. Hundreds of orders over 6 months, all to Samantha's address, all for 2 people. He'd memorized her food preferences, knew her favorite restaurants, ordered for both of them like it was routine. I found other evidence once I knew where to look. Nathan's credit card statements showed charges from businesses near Samantha's building. His car's GPS history included her address saved as Jim to hide it. His calendar had blocked time labeled as workout or errands that actually corresponded with visits to her place based on the delivery timestamps. Nathan's company was hosting a major product launch event next month. He'd been excited about it for weeks, saying it was important for his career. The event would have over 300 people, including clients, investors, and industry contacts. Partners were encouraged to attend, and Nathan had asked me to come months ago. I'd already bought a dress and was planning to support him at this career milestone. I looked up Samantha online and found she worked for a marketing agency that did consulting for Nathan's company. She'd likely be at the launch event in a professional capacity. I wondered how Nathan planned to handle having both of us there. I contacted Samantha through her business LinkedIn, saying I was Nathan's girlfriend and needed to discuss something important about him. Samantha agreed to meet, probably confused. When we met at a coffee shop, I showed her proof of my 3-year relationship with Nathan. Photos of us together from throughout our relationship, recent ones from last month, texts where Nathan told me he loved me. Samantha went pale. She said Nathan told her he'd recently gotten out of a long-term relationship and was single now. I showed her proof we were very much together, including plans we'd made for next month. I pulled up Nathan's delivery app order history on his phone that he still hadn't retrieved from my apartment. 6 months of orders to her address, showing how long this had been going on. Samantha started crying, realizing Nathan had been lying to her about his relationship status. I explained that while Nathan was ordering dinner with her, he was texting me goodnight and making plans for our weekends together. Samantha was horrified and angry. I asked if she'd help me confront Nathan at his product launch event. She hesitated, not wanting to ruin his career moment, but I explained he'd been using both of us while lying to everyone. She finally agreed. The night of the launch, I arrived with Nathan as his girlfriend. He was confident and excited, introducing me to colleagues and investors. Samantha was there representing her marketing agency. Nathan saw her across the room, and I watched him try to position himself to keep us separated, making excuses to keep me at one side of the venue while he dealt with work matters near where Samantha stood. After the product presentation, there was a Q&A session where anyone could ask questions or make comments. Samantha stood up and took a microphone. She thanked Nathan's company for working with her agency, then said she needed to address something personal about professional integrity. She explained she'd been seeing Nathan for 6 months, believing he was single based on what he told her. Then I stood up and introduced myself as Nathan's girlfriend of 3 years. I showed the food delivery order history on the screens throughout the venue. 6 months of Nathan ordering meals for 2 people at Samantha's address while maintaining our relationship. The timestamps matched up with times he told me he was working late or busy with other commitments. Nathan's face went red. Investors looked uncomfortable. His boss appeared furious. I explained calmly that Nathan had been lying to both of us, maintaining 2 relationships simultaneously while using his work connections to facilitate the affair. Samantha confirmed everything, showing texts where Nathan claimed to be single. Nathan tried to say this was a private matter being aired inappropriately, but his boss pointed out that Nathan had been misrepresenting himself professionally and personally. Several investors mentioned integrity concerns. The product launch celebration turned into Nathan trying to do damage control while people left early. Nathan's professional reputation took a serious hit. Some investors pulled out of deals. His boss reprimanded him for the public scandal at their major event. Both Samantha and I ended our relationships with him immediately. Nathan tried apologizing separately to each of us, but he'd spent 6 months deliberately deceiving us both. Some people think I shouldn't have exposed him at such an important career event. But Nathan had used his professional connections to meet Samantha and had been lying to clients and colleagues about his availability and commitments. His character was relevant to his professional life. The food delivery app that revealed everything showed how routine and deliberate his deception was. I'm rebuilding my life without Nathan. Samantha and I occasionally message each other, bonded by the strange experience of discovering we'd been dating the same person. Sometimes I think about how hundreds of food orders documented his lies, how something as simple as dinner delivery patterns exposed his double life. I found love notes my wife left in ebook margins that weren't meant for me. I, 36, share a family ebook subscription with my wife, Hannah, 34, and we've been married for 8 years. We both love reading and often recommend books to each other through the app. Last week I was looking for something new to read and noticed Hannah had recently finished a romance novel that had good reviews. I decided to download it to see what she'd enjoyed. The app has a feature that shows annotations and highlights from people in your family sharing plan. As I started reading, I noticed Hannah had left dozens of notes in the margins throughout the book. I expected to find her thoughts on the plot or characters, but the first note I saw made me stop completely. Next to a romantic scene, she'd written, "This reminds me of us last weekend. Can't wait for Friday." I kept reading and finding more notes. Thinking about you while reading this. This character's feelings mirror exactly how I feel when we're together. Our story is better than any fiction. These weren't notes about the book itself, they were messages to someone else. The app showed these notes were created over the past 3 months as Hannah read through various romance novels. I checked her other recently finished books. Every romance novel she'd read in the past 4 months had similar annotations scattered throughout. Personal messages, inside jokes, references to meetings and dates, all written as notes in books she knew I might read. But she wasn't writing to me. The context made it clear these were for someone named James, who she mentioned by name in several annotations. One note said, "James, when you read this part, remember that's exactly what I want to do with you." Another said, "Can't believe we have to wait until Tuesday to see each other. Reading this just makes me miss you more." Hannah had been using our shared reading app to leave romantic messages for someone else, probably coordinating when he should read the same books so he'd see her notes. I started going through every book Hannah had read in the past 6 months. The pattern was clear and systematic. She and James had been reading the same romance novels simultaneously, leaving notes for each other in the digital margins like passing love letters through literature. The annotations showed an escalating relationship spanning at least 5 months, possibly longer. I could trace their relationship development through the notes. Early annotations were flirtatious and tentative. "I wonder if you're reading this same scene right now." "Your recommendation was perfect. This book understands exactly how I'm feeling." Then they became more explicit and personal. "Last night was incredible. This scene doesn't even compare to reality. I love you. I know we can't say it out loud yet, but I can write it here." The annotations included practical planning, too. "My husband is traveling next Thursday. We could have the whole evening." "He's working late tomorrow. Come over at 7. Hannah had been documenting our entire relationship logistics in book margins, telling James when I'd be gone so they could meet. One note from 3 weeks ago said, "He suspects nothing. We're safe to keep this going." I downloaded the reading history data from the app and found James's account connected to the same books. His username was generic, but his annotations responded to Hannah's messages. They'd been having entire conversations in the margins of romance novels, using literature as their private messaging system. The app allowed users to share annotations with specific people, and Hannah had been sharing exclusively with James. I hired a private investigator who identified James as a 32-year-old librarian who worked at the public library Hannah frequented. They'd apparently met at a book club event 6 months ago and bonded over shared reading interests. The affair had moved from discussing books to reading them together, to leaving love notes in digital margins while sleeping with each other during times I was unavailable. The PI got photos of Hannah and James together at coffee shops discussing books, at his apartment presumably reading together, and entering hotels. The investigation confirmed every detail Hannah had casually mentioned in her book annotations was real. When she wrote about last weekend or Tuesday nights, those were actual meetups documented in the PI's surveillance. Hannah was scheduled to attend a major literary event next month, featuring her favorite romance author doing a reading and Q&A session. It was a ticketed event with over 400 book lovers attending, including many from Hannah's regular book club. Hannah had been excited about this for months, had coordinated with her book club friends to attend together, and had even prepared a question to ask the author. I contacted the event organizers and explained I was Hannah's husband and wanted to contribute a special presentation about how romance novels had impacted our lives. They thought it was a touching gesture and agreed to let me speak briefly before the author's reading. I prepared a presentation using Hannah's own annotations as the foundation. The night of the event, Hannah was animated and happy, sitting with her book club friends in the front rows. James was also in attendance, sitting separately in the back, probably planning to catch up with Hannah discreetly. The author gave her talk, and then the moderator introduced me as a surprise speaker, Hannah's supportive husband who wanted to share something about the power of reading. I took the microphone and displayed screenshots from the reading app showing book covers everyone would recognize. Then, I showed Hannah's annotations from those books, projected on large screens throughout the venue. Her romantic messages to James appeared one by one, complete with dates and context, showing they were written during an affair spanning 5 months. This reminds me of us last weekend. Can't wait for Friday. I love you. I know we can't say it out loud yet, but I can write it here. My husband is traveling next Thursday. We could have the whole evening. He suspects nothing. We're safe to keep this going. Every annotation displayed publicly for the literary community to see. I explained that while everyone celebrated the romance in novels tonight, my wife had been living her own romance story with someone else, documented in the margins of the same books we were here to celebrate. I showed the pattern of annotations coordinating their affair, using literature as their secret communication method. Hannah's face went from confused to horrified. Her book club friends looked shocked. James tried to leave, but several people blocked the exits, wanting to understand what was happening. The romance author looked uncomfortable having her reading preceded by an affair exposure, but the crowd was transfixed. I displayed annotations where Hannah described specific meetups with James matched against times I was working or traveling. Her own words showed premeditation and sustained deception, all preserved in digital margins she thought were private messages. The literary community she'd been part of for years now saw how she'd weaponized shared reading interests to facilitate betrayal. Hannah tried to claim the annotations were misinterpreted, creative writing exercises, anything but what they obviously were. But James's responding annotations were also displayed, showing clear back-and-forth conversations. Too many people had read the books and recognized the intimate nature of the notes. The event organizers asked us to leave. Hannah's reputation in her book club and literary circles was destroyed. Several members expressed feeling betrayed since they'd unwittingly provided Hannah cover stories about book club meetings that were actually times she met James. James quietly left town afterward, his position at the library becoming untenable after the public exposure. I filed for divorce with printed copies of every annotation Hannah had written. Some people think I ruined a literary event unnecessarily, that I should have confronted Hannah privately. But she'd used our shared reading interests, books we both loved, as the medium for conducting her affair. She'd corrupted something we'd bonded over, turning literature into her secret messaging system. The divorce is progressing. I've stopped using that reading app, the annotations feature now feeling tainted. Sometimes I think about how Hannah and James thought they were being clever, using book margins as private communication, not realizing digital annotations are searchable, trackable, and much more permanent than they assumed. Their love story, written in literary margins, became the evidence that ended everything. I discovered my wife's affair through our puppy's security camera. I, 32, have been married to my wife Amanda, 30, for 5 years. 6 months ago, we adopted a puppy named Biscuit, who has separation anxiety. Our vet recommended getting a pet camera so we could check on him during the day and even talk to him through the speaker to help calm him down. I set up the camera in our living room with a wide view of the space. I work as an accountant with typical office hours, while Amanda is a freelance photographer with a flexible schedule. She often works from home, editing photos or meeting clients at various locations. 3 weeks ago, I was having a particularly stressful day at work and decided to check on Biscuit during my lunch break to see if watching him would help me relax. When I opened the app, Biscuit was sleeping peacefully on the couch, but Amanda was there too, which surprised me because she'd told me that morning she had a full day of client meetings across town. She wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize was with her on our couch. They were kissing. I sat frozen in my office watching the live feed. They moved to our bedroom, out of the camera's view, but I could see enough to know what was happening. Biscuit woke up and wandered toward the bedroom, and I could hear voices through the camera's audio, though I couldn't make out words. About an hour later, the man left. Amanda appeared back in the living room, straightened the couch cushions, and continued her day like nothing had happened. I closed the app, feeling sick. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to call her immediately and confront her, but I needed to think clearly. I went back to work in a daze, unable to focus on anything. When I got home that evening, Amanda greeted me normally, asking about my day, making dinner together like we did every night. She mentioned her client meetings went well, and she'd landed a new contract. She was lying directly to my face. I didn't confront Amanda that night, or the next day. Instead, I started going through the pet camera's saved recordings. The app stored footage for 30 days. I discovered this wasn't the first time. The same man had been to our house 8 times over the past month, always during my work hours, always when Amanda told me she'd be out for the day. They'd been using our home, our bed, our life together as the setting for their affair. I started taking screenshots and saving video clips to a separate cloud account Amanda didn't have access to. I documented dates, times, how long he stayed each visit. I looked through Amanda's phone while she was in the shower, using her passcode she'd never hidden from me. She had him saved under a woman's name, Jennifer, with messages that were clearly romantic and sexual when you knew the context. They'd been seeing each other for 4 months. I found photos Amanda had sent him, taken in our bedroom, wearing lingerie I'd bought her for our anniversary. She'd sent him intimate photos meant for her husband, turning our private moments into content for her affair. The messages revealed his name was Cole. He was 28, and he worked at a gym where Amanda had recently started taking classes. She'd told me she wanted to get in shape, but really, she'd been meeting him there and bringing him back to our house. The worst messages were the ones where they discussed me. Cole asked if Amanda felt guilty. She said no, that our marriage had become routine and boring, that I was too focused on work to notice anything anyway. She told him I was predictable and safe, which was why she stayed, but Cole made her feel alive again. Reading those words from my wife about our 5-year marriage destroyed me. I hired a private investigator to gather additional evidence and confirm the affair extended beyond my home. Within a week, the PI documented Amanda and Cole meeting at his apartment, at hotels, at parks, acting like a couple in public places they thought I'd never go. They weren't being particularly careful anymore, holding hands openly, kissing in parking lots. The PI discovered Cole had a girlfriend who he lived with, meaning both of them were cheating on their partners. His girlfriend's name was Stephanie, and she had no idea her boyfriend was having an affair. I debated whether to tell her, but decided I needed to focus on my own situation first. I could give her the information after I dealt with Amanda. Amanda's photography business was having a gallery showing next month to display her best work. She'd been planning it for over a year and invited all her clients, friends, family, and professional contacts. Over 100 people were expected to attend. It was supposed to be her big breakthrough moment in the local photography scene. She'd been talking about it constantly, excited and nervous about the professional exposure. I told Amanda I wanted to contribute something special to the showing and asked if I could set up a video display alongside her photos. She loved the idea, thinking I wanted to create a tribute to her work or our relationship. The gallery owner agreed to let me use one of their large screens for a multimedia presentation. The night of the showing, the gallery was packed. Amanda's photos were displayed beautifully, and she was glowing with pride, networking with potential clients and accepting compliments. I stood beside her, playing the supportive husband role one last time. After an hour of mingling, the gallery owner announced my special video presentation. The lights dimmed and the large screen lit up. Instead of a tribute to Amanda's photography, the screen showed footage from our pet camera. 4 months of evidence compiled chronologically. Amanda and Cole in our living room, kissing on our couch, disappearing into our bedroom. Timestamps showing these occurred during times she told me she was at client meetings. I included screenshots of their text messages with Cole's contact saved under a fake name. Messages where Amanda complained about our marriage being boring. Photos she'd sent him in lingerie I'd given her. The video showed the pattern clearly. How many times this had happened in our home while I was at work, trusting her. The gallery went completely silent except for gasps. Amanda's face went from confused to horrified as she realized what was playing. She tried to get to the screen, but I'd worked with the gallery owner to ensure she couldn't stop it. The presentation included voice recordings from the pet camera where you could hear them talking about me, laughing about how I had no idea. Amanda's mother started crying. Her professional contacts looked disgusted. Several people left immediately. Her best friend confronted her right there, asking how she could do this. Amanda tried to claim the footage was taken out of context, that it wasn't what it looked like. But too many people had seen clear evidence. Cole wasn't at the event, but several people in the photography community knew him from the gym. Word spread quickly about who he was. I ended the presentation with a simple slide stating I'd be filing for divorce, and that Amanda had used our home and our marriage as cover for a 4-month affair. I left the gallery while people were still processing what they'd seen. Amanda tried calling me dozens of times that night. Her professional reputation was destroyed. Several clients who attended the showing canceled their contracts. The gallery owner was furious that her event had become the setting for exposing an affair. Amanda's photography business collapsed within weeks. The local photography community is small, and word spread quickly. She couldn't book clients after what everyone had witnessed. We're divorcing, and she's moving back with her parents. Cole's girlfriend found out too. I made sure she got copies of everything, and they broke up immediately. Some people think I destroyed Amanda's career unnecessarily, that I should have divorced her quietly. But she used our home, the life we'd built together, as the setting for her affair while telling me she loved me every day. She humiliated our marriage privately for months. I just made sure the truth was known publicly. The divorce is nearly final. I kept Biscuit and, ironically, I'm grateful for the pet camera that revealed the truth. I'm rebuilding my life without someone who treated our home like a hotel for her affair. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. But then I remember those messages where she called me boring and predictable while betraying everything we'd built together. I discovered my husband's affair because he grabbed my phone by mistake. I, 33, have been married to my husband David, 35, for 7 years. We have identical phones, same model and color, which has led to mix-ups before, but never anything serious. Last month, David left for a morning run and accidentally grabbed my phone instead of his. I didn't realize until I heard his phone buzzing repeatedly on the nightstand. I picked it up to silence it and saw the notifications. Text messages from someone named Alex kept appearing on the lock screen. The previews were explicit. Phrases about missing him, references to their last night together, and complaints about having to share him. My heart started pounding. I unlocked his phone using the passcode we'd always shared openly and read through the messages. David had been having an affair for over a year. The messages went back 14 months, with detailed conversations about their relationship, frustrations about him being married, and plans for a future together. There were photos David had sent from our bed, from our vacation last summer, while I was at the beach with friends, from our anniversary dinner, where he excused himself to the bathroom multiple times. Alex wasn't just some random person. The message history revealed. Alex worked at the same hospital where David was a surgeon. They had met during a conference, and the affair started shortly after. What made it worse was reading how David talked about me. He called our marriage stale and loveless. He told Alex I was the reason he was unhappy, that I had let myself go, that staying with me was just easier than divorce. I heard the front door open. David was back from his run. I quickly locked his phone and set it back on the nightstand, then grabbed my own phone from the kitchen counter where he'd left it. When he came upstairs, I was sitting on the bed. He kissed my forehead and grabbed his phone, not noticing anything wrong. I spent the next 2 weeks gathering everything I could find. I created a secret cloud account and backed up all of David's messages, emails, and photos before he could delete anything. I hired a private investigator who confirmed the affair and provided additional evidence including photos of David and Alex together outside the hospital, at restaurants, and entering Alex's apartment. Alex was 29, also a surgeon, and apparently had no issue being involved with a married colleague. The investigator found they'd been careless, having lunch together in the hospital cafeteria regularly and leaving work together often. Some of their colleagues clearly knew or suspected something, but no one had said anything to me. I looked through our shared credit card statements and found charges I'd overlooked before. Hotels during times David claimed to be at medical conferences. Expensive dinners on nights he said he was working late. Jewelry purchases I never received. He'd been spending our money on the affair, thousands of dollars over the course of a year, while I'd been carefully budgeting to save for the house renovation we'd been planning. I consulted with a divorce lawyer who helped me secure our assets and prepare for separation. I opened my own bank account and started moving my income there. I collected documentation of everything we owned and made copies of important papers, all while pretending everything was normal at home. Cooking dinner, asking about his day, sleeping next to him at night. David had no idea I knew. He continued the affair openly, barely being careful anymore. He'd text Alex while sitting next to me on the couch. He'd take calls in the next room, and I could hear him saying things he used to say to me years ago. I felt disgusted watching him live this double life so comfortably. The investigator informed me that David and Alex had gotten bolder. They were planning to go public with their relationship soon. Alex had been pressuring David to leave me, and from the messages I monitored, David was finally agreeing. They planned to announce their relationship at the hospital's annual fundraising gala next month, a huge event attended by donors, board members, and the entire medical staff. The gala was the hospital's biggest event of the year. Over 300 people would attend, including wealthy donors who funded David's research department, hospital administrators, and media covering the event. David had been elected to give a speech about the cardiology department's achievements. He spent weeks preparing, excited about the exposure and networking opportunities. I told David I wasn't feeling well and couldn't attend the gala. He seemed relieved, probably planning to spend the evening with Alex without having to sneak around. What he didn't know was that I had contacted the hospital's development director, who I'd met several times at previous events, and requested to give a surprise tribute video honoring David's work. She thought it was a touching gesture and agreed to include it in the evening's program. The night of the gala, I went anyway, sitting in the back where David wouldn't see me. The event was elegant, with silent auctions, dinner, and speeches. David gave his presentation about medical advances and was well received. Then, the development director announced a special tribute to Dr. David Chen for his dedication and contributions. The lights dimmed, and my video began playing on the large screens throughout the ballroom. It opened with our wedding photos and clips from our 7 years together. Then, it transitioned to something else entirely. Screenshots of David's messages with Alex, dated and time-stamped over 14 months. Photos the investigator had taken of them together. Credit card statements showing money spent on the affair. Voice messages David had left for Alex saying explicit things. The video included a timeline showing David's lies, times he claimed to be working, but was actually with Alex. Conferences he supposedly attended alone, but hotel records showed double occupancy. I had narrated parts of it, calmly explaining how I discovered everything and documenting the affair methodically. The ballroom erupted. People were gasping, whispering, some standing up to see better. I watched David's face go white as he realized what was happening. Alex, who was sitting at a front table, tried to leave but was blocked by the crowd. The hospital's chief of staff looked furious. Board members were watching with expressions of shock and disapproval. The video ended with me stating that David would be receiving divorce papers and thanking everyone for their time. I walked out through the side exit before anyone could stop me. My lawyer had already filed the papers that afternoon, and David would be served the following morning. The fallout was immediate. David tried calling me dozens of times that night. The hospital launched an ethics investigation, since workplace affairs violated their conduct policy, especially between colleagues in the same department. David's research funding was suspended pending the investigation. Alex was transferred to a different hospital after donors complained. David came to the house the next day begging me to talk. He claimed he made a mistake and wanted to work things out. I refused to engage and had my lawyer handle everything. Several of David's colleagues reached out to apologize for not telling me sooner. Apparently, the affair had been an open secret in their department. Some people think I went too far, exposing him at such a public professional event. His career has taken a serious hit, and his reputation in the medical community is damaged. But he spent a year lying to me, spending our money on another person, and planning to humiliate me by going public with Alex at that same event. I just beat him to it. The divorce is progressing. I'm keeping the house. David moved in with Alex briefly, but that relationship apparently fell apart within weeks, once the excitement of sneaking around was gone. I'm rebuilding my life and surprisingly at peace with how everything unfolded. I discovered my husband's affair through his airline loyalty program account. I, 32, have been married to my husband Kevin, 34, for 7 years. Last week I was trying to book a flight for a work trip using our shared airline loyalty account. Kevin travels frequently for his job in consulting and racks up tons of miles, which we occasionally use for personal trips. When I logged in to check our miles balance, I noticed something strange in the recent activity history. The account showed Kevin had redeemed miles for 2 round-trip tickets to Miami 3 months ago. I didn't go to Miami with him. Kevin had told me that trip was a solo work conference, and he'd paid for it on his corporate card. But the loyalty account clearly showed he'd used our personal miles to book 2 tickets under our account, departing and returning on the same flights, same confirmation number. I clicked through the transaction details. Both tickets were booked together, seats selected next to each other. The second passenger was listed as E. Rivera. I didn't know anyone named Rivera. I checked more of the account history going back a year. Kevin had been redeeming miles for companion tickets on almost every trip he'd claimed was for work. 6 trips total over 10 months. Boston, Denver, San Diego, New Orleans, Miami, and Seattle. All cities Kevin had supposedly traveled to alone for business conferences or client meetings. All trips where he'd actually booked and paid for a second ticket using our shared miles, bringing someone named E. Rivera with him every single time. The miles I'd helped accumulate through my own work travel were being used to fund his trips with someone else. I checked the seat selections on each flight. Always together, often upgraded to first class using our miles. On the Miami trip, Kevin had even used miles to book a hotel room, the transaction showing clearly in the loyalty program portal. 2 adults, 3 nights, ocean view room. He'd told me he was staying at a conference hotel provided by his company. I started investigating who E. Rivera was. I went through Kevin's work contacts and found an Elena Rivera, who worked in the same consulting firm but in a different office. Her LinkedIn showed she'd attended the same conferences Kevin had, traveled to the same cities around the same times. She was 29, worked in strategy consulting, and her profile showed her based in our city now, though she'd transferred from another office about a year ago. The timeline matched perfectly with when the companion flight bookings started. Kevin and Elena had apparently met at a work event, started traveling together to conferences, and developed a relationship that had been going on for at least 10 months. Every solo work trip had actually been a romantic getaway funded by our shared airline miles. I hired a private investigator who confirmed Elena and Kevin were in a relationship. They were seen together around our city regularly, meeting for dinners, going to her apartment, acting like a couple when they thought no one was watching. The PI discovered they'd been more careful locally, but treated their out-of-town trips as couples' vacations, staying in nice hotels, dining at romantic restaurants, acting openly as partners when away from home. I went back through our credit card statements with new understanding. Kevin's work dinner charges on travel days were actually romantic dinners with Elena. Charges from hotel bars and room service weren't from solo business trips, but from time spent together. He'd been expensing what he could to his company while using our personal loyalty miles to book their actual travel. The airline account showed even more details when I dug deeper. Kevin had added Elena as an authorized user on our family account 6 months ago, giving her access to book travel using our miles. She'd booked flights for herself several times, including a trip to visit her family that she'd paid for entirely with miles Kevin and I had earned. Our shared travel rewards were being treated as their couple's account. I found emails from the airline thanking Kevin for his continued loyalty and highlighting his elite status benefits. Those benefits included free companion upgrades, lounge access for guests, priority boarding for travel companions. Kevin had been using every perk designed for family travel to enhance his trips with Elena, while I stayed home, believing he was working. Kevin's consulting firm was hosting their annual leadership conference next month, a massive 3-day event with over 600 attendees, including consultants from all offices, senior partners, and major clients. Kevin had been excited about presenting at the conference for months, seeing it as a career advancement opportunity. Spouses were invited to attend evening events, and Kevin had told me I should come. I checked the airline loyalty account and saw Kevin had already booked flights to the conference city for both himself and Elena using our miles. 2 tickets, seats together, upgrades applied. I contacted the conference organizers and explained I was Kevin's wife and wanted to prepare a special presentation about the sacrifices consultants' families make to support their careers. They thought it was a touching addition to the program. The first evening of the conference had a formal dinner where partners would be recognized for their contributions to the firm's success. Kevin was proud, introducing me to colleagues and senior partners. Elena was also in attendance, representing her office, carefully staying on the opposite side of the room from us. Kevin seemed relaxed, confident he'd kept his 2 worlds separate. During the dinner program, I took the stage for my presentation. Instead of talking about family sacrifices, I displayed Kevin's airline loyalty account history on the screens throughout the ballroom. 10 months of companion ticket bookings appeared chronologically, showing every trip Kevin claimed was solo work travel. I showed how Kevin had systematically used our shared miles to book tickets for Elena Rivera, highlighting her name on each reservation next to his. The seat selections always together, the hotel bookings for 2 people, the upgrades applied using benefits meant for family members. Each trip displayed with dates showing when Kevin had told me he was traveling alone for work. The ballroom went completely silent. Senior partners looked at the data showing their consultant had been bringing a colleague on work trips as a romantic companion, potentially violating company policies about disclosure and expense reporting. Elena tried to leave, but people near the exits stopped her, wanting answers. Kevin stood up, trying to explain, but I continued showing evidence. I displayed credit card charges from those trips, Kevin's expense reports claiming solo travel while actually being with Elena. The pattern of deception spanning nearly a year. Several senior partners pulled out their phones, likely checking Kevin's submitted expense reports against the evidence. Clients present looked uncomfortable about the integrity issues. Kevin's boss approached him immediately after, and they had a tense conversation in front of everyone. The firm launched an investigation the next day into Kevin's expense reports and travel disclosures. He'd been claiming solo business travel while using personal miles to bring Elena, potentially misrepresenting his activities and expenses to the company. Both Kevin and Elena were terminated within 2 weeks for ethics violations. The firm discovered Kevin had been padding expense reports and misrepresenting the nature of his travel. Using airline miles didn't violate policy, but claiming solo business travel while actually taking a colleague as a romantic companion did, especially when it affected room bookings and meal expenses. Kevin tried to claim I destroyed his career vindictively, but he'd destroyed it himself by using shared family resources to facilitate and hide an affair that violated his company's policies. The airline loyalty account he'd thought was just convenient record-keeping became the complete documentation of his deception. Elena moved to a different city after the termination, her consulting career damaged. I filed for divorce with the loyalty account history as evidence, showing systematic use of marital assets to conduct the affair. Some people think I should have confronted Kevin privately instead of at his career's biggest moment. But Kevin had used his career and work travel as the cover and mechanism for his affair. The same loyalty program that rewarded his business travel became the evidence that revealed how he'd betrayed both his marriage and his employer. Every mile we'd earned together had been used to fund his relationship with someone else. The divorce is almost finalized. I got to keep the remaining airline miles in the settlement, though using them feels tainted now. Sometimes I think about how modern technology creates these detailed records of everything we do. How Kevin's affair was documented in boarding passes, seat selections, and mile redemptions. A complete travel history of his betrayal, archived in a loyalty program database he'd forgotten I could access. I discovered my wife's affair through accidentally synced voice memos on our cloud. I, 38, share an iCloud account with my wife, Rachel, 36, for photo and file storage. We've been married for 10 years and always shared our digital life openly. Last week, I was looking for a voice memo I'd recorded during a work meeting when I noticed dozens of audio files in our shared folder that I didn't recognize. They were labeled with dates and times, all recorded by Rachel over the past several months. I clicked on one from 3 weeks ago out of curiosity. It was Rachel's voice, but she was speaking in a tone I hadn't heard in years, soft and intimate. She was recording a message to someone named Alex, telling him how much she missed him and couldn't wait to see him that weekend. She mentioned specific details about their last time together, explicit and personal things that made my stomach turn. I sat there frozen, then started playing more recordings. There were over 40 voice memos spanning 5 months. Rachel had been recording messages to send to Alex, probably through some messaging app, and they'd been automatically backing up to our shared cloud storage without her realizing it. Each memo was essentially a love letter, her expressing feelings for him that she no longer expressed for me. One memo from 2 months ago talked about how she was falling in love with Alex and didn't know what to do about her marriage. She said I was a good person, but they'd grown apart, that Alex understood her in ways I didn't anymore. Another memo from last month mentioned she was tired of lying, but wasn't ready to leave yet. She discussed logistics of when they could meet based on my work schedule. The recordings painted a complete picture of an affair that had been going on for at least 5 months. Rachel talked about places they'd been together, inside jokes they shared, future plans they were making. She recorded these intimate messages thinking they'd be private, not knowing they were being saved to storage I could access. I downloaded every single voice memo and saved them to a separate secure location. Then, I started investigating based on information Rachel revealed in the recordings. She'd mentioned Alex worked at a gym she'd recently joined, which she'd told me was for getting healthier. She'd described meeting him at his apartment near downtown, giving me enough details to narrow down the location. I found references to specific dates and times in her recordings. One memo mentioned their 3-month anniversary dinner at a restaurant I'd never been to. I checked our credit card statements and found charges from that restaurant on the date she mentioned. But Rachel had told me she was having dinner with her college friend that night. Another memo talked about a weekend they'd spent together, when I was supposedly at a work conference that Rachel said she couldn't attend. The most painful recordings were the ones where Rachel analyzed our marriage. She talked about when things started feeling stale, how she'd tried to rekindle things with me but gave up, how meeting Alex reminded her what passion felt like. She discussed whether she should tell me about the affair or just quietly end the marriage. One memo from last week had her saying she'd probably ask for a divorce after the holidays. I hired a private investigator who confirmed everything. Alex was 33, a personal trainer at the gym Rachel joined 5 months ago. They'd been seeing each other regularly, meeting at his apartment, going on dates, acting like a couple. The PI got photos of them together looking intimate and comfortable. Rachel had fully integrated Alex into her life while keeping me in the dark. I went through Rachel's actual phone while she was sleeping. She'd been using a messaging app that deleted messages after they were read, probably thinking this would hide evidence. But she'd recorded voice messages to send through the app, and those recordings had automatically backed up to our cloud before she sent them. Her caution about text messages was undermined by forgetting about cloud backup for audio files. The recordings also revealed that some of our friends knew about the affair. Rachel mentioned in one memo that her best friend Sarah had met Alex and liked him, that Sarah thought Rachel deserved to be happy even if it complicated things. Another recording mentioned her sister had questioned whether she was doing the right thing, but ultimately supported her. People in Rachel's life knew about Alex, while I remained oblivious. Rachel's gym was hosting a major fitness expo next month, where trainers would showcase their methods and clients would share transformation stories. Rachel had mentioned she was participating, excited to talk about her fitness journey. I learned from the gym's website that Alex was one of the featured trainers who would be presenting. The event would have over 400 attendees, including gym members, fitness industry people, and local media. I contacted the expo organizers and explained I was Rachel's husband and wanted to contribute to her presentation by showing her dedication and progress. They agreed to let me add content to the multimedia displays that would be showing throughout the event. I created a presentation using Rachel's own voice memos as the foundation. The day of the expo, I arrived separately from Rachel. She was there with Alex, who she'd told me was just her trainer helping with her presentation. They were clearly comfortable together, standing close, touching casually. Rachel had no idea I'd be there or what I'd prepared. After Rachel's fitness presentation, where she talked about finding motivation and transformation, the organizers announced a special tribute to her journey. The displays around the expo floor began playing audio. Rachel's voice filled the space through the sound system, her intimate voice memos to Alex playing for everyone to hear. "I can't stop thinking about you, Alex. Yesterday was incredible, and I keep replaying every moment." Her voice continued as people stopped and listened, confused. "I know I'm married, but what we have feels so real. I've never felt this way, not even in the beginning with my husband." The recordings played in chronological order, showing the development of their affair over 5 months. Rachel talking about falling in love with Alex, discussing when to leave me, describing their times together. Her voice discussing logistics of hiding the affair based on my schedule. All of it playing publicly, while Rachel stood frozen and horrified. Alex looked panicked. Other trainers at the gym started recognizing the situation. Attendees pulled out phones. Rachel tried to stop the audio, but it was playing from multiple speakers throughout the venue. I'd queued 45 minutes of her most revealing memos, ensuring everyone heard the full scope of the affair. The expo coordinator tried to cut the audio, but I'd worked with their tech person to ensure it played completely. Rachel's voice continued, describing intimate details, her feelings for Alex, her plans to end our marriage. Her best friend Sarah was in the crowd looking shocked that this was being exposed publicly. Rachel's sister tried to rush toward her, but security stopped her. After the audio finished, I walked through the crowd to where Rachel stood. I told her and everyone listening that while she'd been recording these love letters to her trainer, she'd been coming home to me pretending everything was fine. Her voice memos had automatically synced to our shared cloud storage, documenting 5 months of systematic betrayal in her own words. The gym terminated Alex's contract immediately, not wanting the scandal associated with their brand. Rachel's fitness journey presentation was completely overshadowed. Several gym members approached me afterward, saying they'd noticed Rachel and Alex seemed close but never imagined this. Rachel's family was horrified that their private support of her affair had been revealed. I filed for divorce the next day with the voice memos as evidence. Rachel tried to claim the recordings were private, and I violated her privacy by sharing them. My lawyer pointed out she'd saved them to our shared cloud account, and they documented adultery. Some people think I went too far, exposing her at a public fitness event where she was trying to share her health journey. But Rachel's health journey was intertwined with her affair with her trainer. She joined the gym specifically to meet him, built her fitness routine around seeing him, used her transformation story as cover for the relationship. Her own voice revealed the truth about what her journey actually was. Rachel lost her marriage, her trainer relationship, and her reputation in the fitness community because she forgot her intimate audio messages were being automatically saved to storage I could access. The divorce is moving forward. Alex apparently moved to a different state to escape the fallout. Rachel's friends who supported the affair have distanced themselves after being implicitly exposed. Sometimes I think about how technology that was meant to help us stay connected and organized ultimately revealed Rachel's secret life. How her own words in her own voice became the evidence that ended everything.